Let me get everything set up real quick for the chat. All right, I think I have that set now. Okay. Welcome, any and all who visit. Let me get myself up. I'll make myself a post-Trump speech drink. I apologize for starting this late, but I didn't know Trump was going to speak tonight. And I was interested in what he had to say, just to kind of feel out what's going on, you know. And I got to admit, boy, if we are to believe everything we are being told by the media about Trump, and by Trump himself, by the administration, it all sounds very good. In fact, it sounds so good it makes you want to throw on a MAGA hat. All right. Now, I have stressed before that you've been knowing all this time to take whatever the media says, apply the opposite to it, and then you would understand what's actually the truth. Well, if you just think about the bigger picture, the big picture, the fact that both sides are all wall kissers, the fact that Trump has received more honors and awards from the Jews than pretty much anyone else, the fact that they are getting their way on being classified in our law as a minority status and a protected class, if you will. I mentioned in other streams, and particularly in last stream as well, I had brought it up that Jews will throw bones your way to win you over, or it doesn't necessarily have to be to win you over. It can be just so you'll shut up and let them have their way about other things that you otherwise would disagree with, like allowing them to make themselves a protected minority in our country, in our own law books. Okay, if they were just running ramshot over us like they were with the previous administration, and then they tried to push that type of thing as, you know, to be put into our law as that they are a protected minority class who deserves even more privilege and even more benefits above white people than the white people have, and more than they already have now. It wouldn't have gone over as well. There would have been a lot of complaining by our side, or what we call our side, the fake right-wing side. Perhaps not, though, considering they have so many of them cucked. But because we're seemingly getting our way, we're allegedly getting our way right now. Allegedly, DEI is being done away with. Allegedly, there are thousands, not millions like was promised, but thousands at least, allegedly, supposedly, of illegal, and all non-whites are illegals, but the classified illegal non-whites being rounded up. Allegedly, there are, you know, hundreds of thousands of blacks who've been fired from our government who were given fake jobs so that they could receive a free paycheck every week from the U.S. government just because they are non-whites, particularly if they were blacks. And one thing about that is, first of all, well, two things about that is, one, we don't know if it's really true. We hear that it's true by the left media, the J-ish owned MSM, complaining that Trump is doing these things. Okay, but this can all be one grand illusion. Remember, he's been lifelong friends with all of the leftists who now get paid by our US government to pretend to be against him. That's what part of US aid money was going to. I explained that long ago on a stream, gosh, multiple streams back, that the leftists who are rabid anti-Trumpists, all these famous celebrity ones and all that, they're being paid by our U.S. government to be anti-Trump openly in the public. Kathy Lee Gifford and all these idiots. And that's why they didn't have to work in Hollywood making movies to make their living anymore. Everybody thought, oh, these are washed up actors and actresses. They're has-beens just trying to make themselves relevant again. No. Rather than having to work and be actually on scene somewhere shooting a film so that they can make money, they were simply paid by our U.S. government to be rabid anti-Trumpers online. And I don't know how they graded or judged it or whatever based on performance, but the bottom line is they were paid to be anti-Trumpers when they've spent their whole lives being good friends with Trump. And Trump has spent his whole life being good friends with them. And so if these Hollywood actors and actresses are being paid to be anti-Trump, which they were, then that means they had to be paid to be anti-Trump. That means it's a calculated, staged, choreographed attack against Trump. Okay, it's not organic, it's not grassroots, it's not natural. And so, again, going back to what I had mentioned at the beginning of the stream, to be our reference here, we know to not believe anything the MSM ever says, right? So, and we see example after example. People post. We post example after example of how they lie all the time. And how most of the time they will say whatever the reality is, they will be reporting the 180-degree opposite. You know, a criminal is actually a victim. A person who was murdered just lost their life somehow. They just misplaced it. It's got to be around here somewhere. When really they were murdered by, a pack of nogs or a random nog walking by who attacked them. All of these different lies or all these different examples are always examples of lies that the MSM tells. And it's become so normal over the years that someone who has been paying attention all this time already knows to disregard what the news says, or to take whatever the news says and flip it 180-degree opposite, and that would actually be the reality. Well, knowing that, let's look at what they declare on the news. Everything that Trump claims he is doing, instead of the news saying, like you would expect them to say, if Trump really was doing all these things that we think are good for us and good for America, like ending U.S. aid funding and firing all those hundreds of thousands of nogs working for the government, quote, working for the government, from home, meaning they don't work, they just get a free paycheck. The non-whites being rounded up and all this stuff. If all of it was really true, the MSM, going on the pattern that they always follow, would be saying that Trump is full of crap. Okay, the news would spend all day debunking every one of Trump's claims. Last night I issued, blah, 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 I got rid of 13,000 illegals last week. Whatever he brags about, they would debunk it or do their version of an attempt of debunking it on the news all day, every day, And remember, when Trump would brag about something that the news did want to claim he didn't do, when they did want to lie about something that he had done and claim that he really actually had not done it, even though they were lying through their teeth, they would say so. But in this case, this time around with Trump, this new 4 years with Trump, they are basically reporting exactly what Trump declares he and his administration are doing. Rounding up illegals, firing the Nogs, all this stuff, ending DEI, ending CRT. Now, granted, he did sign bills for those things, or executive orders for those things, I should say. But he knows that a leftist judge, any random leftist judge, can just block whatever executive order he's written. And not only that, he knows that they will just rebrand those things like DEI. DEI has existed since the 1960s. And I said 1970s the last time, but when I did, immediately after I corrected myself and scooted it back further to the mid 1960s, because it really started immediately after the Civil Rights Act garbage was passed. So, all of this has been going on since way back then. It just wasn't titled DEI. It was just a titleless, known but unwritten but unspoken about rule that you had to hire a black to have a token so you're not called the scary R word. But we have to change our country to where, and I don't know if you noticed tonight, but tonight Trump had non-white after non-white stand up and be honored. Some freaking non-white invader, kid that I'm sure we spent our money to fix his medical problems. And he promises he wants to be a police officer when he grows up. Kid's 9 years old. Whoop-de freaking do what the kid wants to be. Every kid that age, half the time, you know what it is. The kid don't really think that. What they did is they were like, oh, would you like to be a police officer someday? And the dumb kid just nodded his head yes. And they're like, oh, wow, kid wants to be a police officer someday. It started turning into like the RNC grand or opening show. It was like non-white after non-white. We had to congratulate some Roberto Ortiz for having one bullet shot at him while his other Border Patrol agent partner fled for cover. Some Mexican popped off one round at him, and Trump's got to honor him like it's some big deal. We have hundreds of thousands of white men shot at every day, not by one bullet going by or whatever, by missiles and by rockets, bombs, torpedoes. We have all these machine guns and everything else firing at our white men all day, every day. But we have to honor this Roberto Ortiz, who's not even supposed to be in our freaking country, because he got shot at one time by one Mexican while he's holding cover for his partner. Had to call him a hero, had to say we honor you. Now, I'm not in total disagreement with everything that was said tonight. Of course, most everything that was said on the surface, anyone would agree with that's a based white person if it was all true. So what was said, all I mostly agreed with. But what I mean is what was said that's actually true, like naming that park after the slain white girl that was killed. I think that was nice. But again, those are all just political and platitudical. That's a Bush word I just made there. They're not something that fixes our problem. Okay, we don't have enough land to dedicate to enough dead white girls and enough dead white children and enough dead elderly white people to make up for every single murder that is caused by non-whites being on our soil. And it has nothing to do with whether they're illegal or not. They could have been born and raised here, fifth generation, their whole lives born and raised here. They don't belong here. Their parents don't belong here. Their grandparents don't belong here. And their great-grandparents who moved here don't belong here. They belong in their own racist country. And so allowing non-whites to continue living here, especially honoring them and every freaking thing else, while our white children and white women every day, every single day, right now, since I started this stream, we have lost another white, beautiful woman to a non-white somewhere in this country. Perhaps in just the short amount of time, 15 minutes since I started this stream, we've lost 4 or 8 or 15 beautiful white people who had another 45 years of their lives to go. We've lost them in just the last 15 minutes since I started this stream because of non-whites being allowed to stay in our country. Because of us allowing Jews to still be in our government. I pointed out in the chat that I was watching the Trump stream in. I pointed out to that cucked chat that every year during Christmas time, there's a giant menorah put on the White House lawn. But there is never a cross put there. And I'm sick of it. I don't want to hear about Zelensky anymore and Ukraine and freaking Gaza being leveled and cleaned up and turned into freaking some new American-owned Gaza. I don't give two shits about any of those places. I want America first. And by America first, I mean real Americans, white people first. MAWA is way greater and will always be greater than MAGA. You cannot even have MAGA without having MAWA. You can't do it. You have to make America white again, or it's not great again. Do you understand the whole reason that the whole world doesn't give two shits about the label Made in America anymore, and they won't pay extra to have something made in America anymore, is because they know that if they buy something made in America, most likely it was Tyrone Jones that was built it for you, or some Jorge that's living here that assembled it, not a white man, because they know. But for the last 40 years now, we've had nothing but non-whites flooding our country, and we've cucked all our jobs away to non-whites, and we've allowed companies to cuck all of our business, fire all of us or whatever, not me or you particularly, but us as in our white people, fire our white people and replace them with non-whites, legal ones. So all these wonderful things, seemingly wonderful things that Trump said tonight and addressed tonight, did he address the core problem that has destroyed our country? No. He kept blaming the Democrats, the previous administration, Joe Biden as president. He did not say to you the Jews have been busy destroying our country since 1933, actively working against all of you white people out there listening. Let me get in the chat. A lot of people have said stuff. I apologize that I haven't got in the chat yet. I will start right now. Cheyenne Alexander is here and said hi. Hello. God bless you. The Rivals or More said, I need a favor. Okay. He said it twice. Go ahead and say which favor is. Spy said it's all your fault. Is it? I apologize if it is. Dab 420 said it's Jewish people. Well, they're not people. They're mongrels. But yes, you're dead on the money. Mr. Luck is here. He says, I'm black. I could care less. Good luck to you. Dab 420 and move to Africa, please. Thank you. Dab 420 said, Nigger. Okay, cool. Bet it up. Um, Misophobe said the Gog Ashkenaz chief of the U.S. Homeland Security tried to murder Donald Trump, and Gog Ashkenaz will keep trying if they can't bribe Trump. Well, the Trump assassination was a hoax. It was a staged event. Trump was in on it. It was a WWE stunt. He's been doing those for his whole adult life with the WWE. He knows exactly how all that works, and blood gags and faking out the crowd and the whole thing. So I'm sorry if that staged hoax fooled you into thinking it was a real assassination attempt, but it wasn't. And you're welcome to buy a pig's ear or any animal ear. You could buy a cow's ear, a pig's ear. You're welcome to set it up at your shooting range of convenience for yourself. Take the same gun from the same distance and shoot that animal ear and see what you're left with. See if the bullet pierces through the ear, just a perfect little pierce through the ear, where all you need to do is put a bandage on it for a few days, and then it's back to normal, like you got ear piercing. See if that's your results. I promise you it won't be. In fact, I'll let you know in advance. I'll give you a spoiler alert of what's going to happen. If you shoot a 5.56 or a 223 round at any flesh-made ear of a creature, a person, a pig, a cow, whatever, it will completely annihilate the ear. It will turn it to vapor. There won't be an ear left. It will turn it to smithereens instantly. It will not just pierce the ear. Let's see here. Josephus said, "Why do you sound like a bird rapist?" I don't have enough energy right now to decipher your retarded question. Reword your question a little bit. I'll try to address your stupidity if you can reword it just somewhat. Allie Hunt said, "I hate liberals. Me as well. God bless you. Everyone with a 3-digit IQ should hate liberalism." After all, liberalism just means anti-white. That's what it means. That's what liberalism is. Liberal means anti-God. Anti-God means anti-white. It's all one thing wrapped together. Taco Timothy Jr. said, "My left nut." Go on. Okay. What did you disagree about? Go ahead and throw me a little bit of your argument. We'll hash it out. Beach Law said, fiendish chat. Fiendish chat. Yeah, I don't know why you would take a chat and try to attach it to the word fiend. I don't get how you would come to that conclusion, but good for you in your little double-digit IQ world. Tell both of them we said hello. Miss Loyal White Knight said, "My favorite stream." Well, hello. God bless you, dear. Jordan Searcy said, "Hey, Diddy freak off party lover." No, definitely not me. I'm about the opposite of that. And he said, "Go Trump." Well, that's funny because Trump has lots of pictures with Diddy at Diddy parties, funny enough. So you can look those up right now on Google Images if you like. Trump with Diddy. There are plenty of those. Plenty of pictures with Diddy, with Melania, Trump with Diddy. Let's see here. Taco Timothy Jr. said, "Can explain this dick in your mouth?" Man, you must be a Trump lover big time. Had to catch your breath, I see. 5 hours in and still going hard. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to skip your dumb comments because you're obviously either a Trump tard or whatever. But again, if you have a 3-digit IQ comment, if you have something worthy of saying, I'll read it. If you have a pertinent argument, I will read it and I'll hash it out with you. But, you know, your dumb comments don't really bother me at all. So let's see here. Chris Callaghan said, "Team White Unite." Exactly. That is what the whole purpose of this channel is for, is to unite the white. We don't give a shit about the right or the left. Both of them serve the Jews who want us dead, want all white people dead, regardless of what cucks like the ones above. Taco Timothy, well, he's probably a Mexican. Hey, Taco Timothy, if you're Mexican, get the fuck out of my country and do it tonight, okay? Take yourself a plane ride back to Mexico and make Mexico great. Let's see here. What do we got next? Carnivora said, what is blood yapping about? Don't worry your little third world IQ about it, all right? Let's see here. Stephen Loftus said, over here in Dearborn, Michigan. Well, cool for you, man. I hope it's not too cold up there tonight. Potato Pot said, me too, Stephen. I don't know what that was about. I'll skip it. Miss Little White Knight said, I hate the fact that Trump caters to Nogs. I know, it's ridiculous. It's pathetic. It's such cuckery and useless and needless and pointless and counterproductive to white people. It's fucking pathetic and ridiculous. I don't know what this idiot's name is, but he said, shut up to me. You're welcome to go back to your third world shithole that you belong in, Mahdi. Hopefully that's where you're typing that from. Hopefully you're not typing from a white person's country. If you are, that means you're a worthless parasite. How about that? Just like every other black-haired, brown-eyed, non-blushing, brown skin, non-white in our country. If you're a black in our country, listen up. You don't belong here, and you know you don't. And you don't have to stay here and go, whoa, it's me, the poor white people. You know you don't have to stay here, and we know you don't have to stay here. You've been given free money since the day you were freaking born. You have plenty of money to get on a plane and get your ass to Liberia where you belong, or to anywhere in Africa where you belong. You don't belong in a white country. Get the fuck out of our country before it gets ugly later and we make you leave. We don't want to have to do that. I don't honestly want to have see any non-whites perish. But I'm sick of my white people perishing because of your existence in our country. And so, if you continue on existing in our countries, and you continue insisting on refusing to leave and insist on having access to white people, even though you have no right, there's no such thing as anyone having a right to have access to white people, or to have access to our countries, or to have access to our money, or to have access to our institutions, or to have access to our inventions. So you won't even be typing with a phone anymore in the future. Okay, all those things will be taken away. You're going to be sent back to your countries where you belong. Okay, Trump's not going to be the one to do it, but it will come. It will happen because of your persistence in being parasites, parasitical loads on white people. Over time, enough white people will become alarmed, will wake up to the cuckery that they have been duped into for all these years, where you all have taken white people's politeness as weakness and have treated us as naive suckers. All of that's going to blow up in your face someday, says God says God himself. And he will be protecting his special creation, mankind, Adam and Eve's pure blood descendants who can blush, who have 12 manner of hair and eye color combinations, while your races cannot produce any such thing other than black hair and brown eyes. And he will be eliminating all of you who refuse to leave. I don't know the process he's going to do. I'm not going to try to guess. It's not my business how he does it, but it will happen. And you or your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren will be caught up in it and will be destroyed from it if they refuse to leave when the great day comes. So I don't want to have to see any non-whites perish when the great day comes. I would prefer that if it was up to me, they would all just cooperate and get on the barges and be on their way to their country of origin where they belong. You belong in another place, you know? And once you are back in that place where you belong, your brain and body and everything will start to vibe with your own homeland again, around your own people again. Well, they're not people, but you know what I'm saying. Your own upright bipeds again. And over time, you will come to homeostasis with your original homeland, where you belong. Okay? Right now, you feel like you belong here because no one's actually told you the obvious truth before until now, and I'm be glad to be the one to tell you. It's obvious you don't belong here. That's why you envy white people with your every breath, your every waking moment. It's why you do nothing but compare yourselves to white people. You don't compare yourselves to other non-whites. You'll never see a black looking at Indians and looking at himself and comparing himself to them and trying to make sure he looks as good as the Indians or looks better than Indians or looks like Indians. You'll never see a black trying to compare himself to an Arab and trying to look like an Arab and hang out like an Arab. And there's no such thing as that. Non-whites do not envy or desire to be like other non-whites. All of you only desire to be like white people, to be thought of like white people, to be honored or looked up to like white people, like the non-whites look up to white people. You desire our women because you know our women are the true standard of beauty, while your females are fugly, quite frankly. And on it goes. All of those problems, those are problems for white people. You have to understand, having y'all here, having you envious of our people, having you desire our women, salivating over our women, it's all counterproductive to white people's betterment, well-being, to our future, to our posterity. We would already be living like the Jetsons if we had removed the non-whites from our country back in the 60s. So all you're doing is holding white people back. All you're doing is holding progress and humanity. And you got to understand, while y'all hold the white people back, being parasites living in our country where you don't belong, you're also slowing your own progress down. Believe it or not. You think that isn't true because you're like, no way. If I was in my shithole third world country right now, I would be eating mud and walking around barefoot unless I had some kind of handout from the white people countries, right? And instead, I'm here in white people country, and I got a cell phone and a car, and I got money in my pocket, and I can eat wherever I want. I can do all these things, and I have access to white women. I'm doing way better here. This is way more progress than I would ever have in my old third world shithole country. And at the moment, that's true. But if you lived where you belong, over time, white people living all our own will create so much greater of technologies and will create so much better of situations and facilities and create so much better economy and market-driven status for ourselves that we would have so much excess like we used to have in the 50s that we could just be giving things away freely to other kinds when we choose to. And our gifts would actually be better for you then in the long run and for your whole country's people, not just one or two of you here and there that come over and live as a parasite in our countries, but actually for your whole group of your people there, or your group of upright bipeds there. And then all of you benefit, right? Now, granted, all of you are selfish individual types who don't care about anybody else in your own race, and that's why it doesn't seem beneficial to you enough to want to go that route as opposed to doing the selfish route and staying here and being a parasite and yada yada and trying to win right now as much as you can. But see, that's the difference between white people and the beasts of the field. Beasts of the field, you're only interested in getting something right now, right? You see someone gets up and leaves their wallet laying there, your brain goes, ooh, take, ooh, mine, I steal, right? And so you're low IQ, double digit, barely above the level of retarded in a white person world. IQ tells you to just be an opportunist, right? So in your lifetime right now, that's all in the moment right now in front of you is all you can think about. You can't think about 100 years in the future. You can't think about the betterment of your whole community of upright bipeds in your country where they belong. You don't care about that and you don't think about that. Why? Because you're opportunists like all animals are. Okay, you see a piece of food, you grab it, you eat it. You don't care if it belongs to someone else. You don't care if it was a prized possession of someone and they simply misplaced it or got up and left it somewhere for a moment and they're going to come back looking for it, desperately hoping to find it. No, you're not any of those things. There is no virtue. You're not built with shame. Okay? You're just destroyers. You're just devourers. You're just takers. You're just users. That's it. White people build, non-whites destroy. That's the way it goes. White people build, white people create, non-whites devour and destroy and ruin. I hope I've explained that concisely enough where you can absorb it into both of your double digits of your IQ. All right, let me move on here. Here's Mahdi again. Furcon, Mahdi. I hope I'm saying your name wrong. Bitch, y'all pale asses tricked the Indian. Y'all go back to Europe, he said. Well, funny enough, we're actually from America. White man was placed in Florida in the Garden of Eden. And so pre-Noah's flood, what you know of as United States of America was actually the home of the Garden of Eden. And when God placed white man in Florida, he told him to keep it. And that means to guard it. What were we guarding it from? From the beasts of the field, non-whites, black-haired, beady brown-eyed, brown-skinned, can't blush, upright biped beasts of the field. You all, that's what we are supposed to guard the Garden of Eden from. It's even called a garden. Guard it. So we're supposed to protect it from you all. And instead, once we rediscovered our old homeland, we didn't allow the Jews to bring tons of you non-whites here, but they did so anyway against our wishes. And instead of us just forcing you all away at gunpoint or else, we are polite. We are polite creatures, and we decided that we would feel bad for you all like we do for any feral animals. And, I have feral cats here that I feed, and if these feral cats I ever discovered were trying to undermine me and envied me and wanted me dead and wanted to steal my women and all this stuff, well, then I would get rid of them. But instead, they actually are appreciative and grateful and beneficial to white people. They bring me joy around here. They're helpful. They run off some of the other critters I don't really want around the house. But there is nothing beneficial about having non-whites in our country. Having you, whatever your weird name is, your alien noises name, there is no benefit to having you or any of your creatures in our country. I hope that makes sense. We don't benefit at all from you being here. You're just a parasite in our country. And so let's see here. Zorax said, is this the racism final boss? Well, I sure hope so, because if I'm ever given presidency in this country, all non-whites are the F out of here. So if you're one, consider yourself totally gone the day I take over. Let's see here. Dr. Lovegreen said, does this guy not understand the natives were here before the white man? Absolutely false. And I already actually corrected that a minute ago by explaining that white man was placed here first by God 5,785 years ago. Let's see here. And the feathers, as you think of as mistakenly called natives, they aren't from America. They came here, and it's well documented and known that they came here over the Bering Ice Bridge way after even the Nords. They came here in 600 AD at the earliest. And at the latest, they probably got here around the 1500s. Around the 1300s. So, and then we come along in the 1500s and start bumping into them like hotcakes all the time, starting in 1492. And, they hadn't been here all that long. They only had, and keep in mind, it wouldn't matter if they were here first or not, because we were here originally, and this is originally our original land. The other thing is there are other lies told that, of course, all of you idiots repeat, which is things like that we gave them poison blankets. Meanwhile, we get poisoning, we get illnesses from non-whites. All these freaking non-whites that flood into our countries, y'all bring monkeypox, you bring freaking the measles. We just had an outbreak of that somewhere. You bring freaking all these third world things, leprosy, all this garbage we haven't seen in over 100 years or 60 years. Now, all of a sudden, we're allowing millions of non-whites in our country, or we're not allowing it, but the Jews are flooding us with millions of you upright biped creatures. And wouldn't you know, we have all these third world diseases that are popping up out of nowhere in our country. Weird how that works. Let's see here. Do you like Kanye? Absolutely not. He's a non-white. He belongs in Africa. I could care less about him. Miss Loyal White Knight said, there's no proof natives were here before whites. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. There is no proof of that. We know when they arrived, roughly, and it's way after the pre-flood civilization. So, yeah, when you want to talk about who was here first, Whitey was here first on day 6. Strange Taha, if I'm saying it right, said, personally, I think the Indians are the problem. Well, I agree. All non-whites in our country are the problem. So it doesn't matter which type. You could say the Indians, you could say the blacks, you could say the Jews. All of them are a problem in our country. They all need to go. And, the bottom line is people can call me the scary R word, whatever they want. This is reality. The reality is non-whites are parasites who do not belong in our country. And they are just feeding off of white people, clinging to the white man's pant leg, living, grifting off of white people, living their whole lives from birth to death off of white people's assistance programs and all this crap that's really intended for poor white people who are injured, who are disabled, who are not able-bodied in some way or mentally incapacitated or just so poor because their family, is just so poor that they just have a bad start in America in life and they need help. It's not intended for worthless non-whites to come to our country and live off of us. That's not what it's intended for. So all of you someday will be going home, and home is not America or any other white country. So get ready. Can't tell you how much longer it's going to be, but I promise you it's coming. God works in mysterious ways, and he will confound you and baffle you just like he did Pharaoh in Egypt. And I look forward to the day. I hope I get to see it. Roots and Rizzos said, truth, brother. All right, got another based one there. Furcon, the worthless Mahdi, said, how are you going to discover a land when folks already live there first? I've already explained that, so I'm going to skip that one. Let's see here. Dab 420 said, whites first. Correct. That is what it will be. Whites first and only in any white country. Once God gives us our control back. But it won't happen until white people start first obeying God the way he wants us to again. So that's why my channel exists, is to stress to white people that we have to start keeping God's laws the way God wants us to keep them. Not the way we want to keep them, the way God wants us to keep them. And that mainly is including the 4th commandment. That's our biggest, our most damaging to ourselves, our most self-destroying error that we're making is failing to keep God's 4th commandment. So once we're keeping all 10 commandments again, not God's 9 commandments, God will finally, at his discretion, when he sees fit, will step in, intervene, and he will do so. He has done so every time in the past. Once we perform the way we are intended to perform, God will perform the way we wish he would perform. And let's see here. Dr. Lovegreen, a parasite, said, fuck your America. I don't want to live there. Good. Move today. Move today. We don't want you here. No one ever wanted you here. You're not welcome here. Just like Ron DeSantis the other day told the mongrel Tate brother twins, you're not welcome here, and you aren't either. So get lost. Get out of whitey world. You don't belong in whitey world. And if you're a white person and you're against whitey world and an all white world, you're a failure of our people. You're a mentally deficient failure of our people, whom our own ancestors would have determined should be exiled from our country. So when the great day comes, you will be on your way with the rest of the non-whites. Promise you that. Strange, Taha, stranger, strange. What does it say? I'm walking, so let me stop walking so I can read it. Strange, Taha said. The sad part is YouTube will ban him because YouTube only allows you to trash on white people. If you mention any other race, they ban. That's true. They are known to do that. That's why we call it YidTube. We don't call it that for no reason. JewTube or whatever else we call it. Basically, that is the problem. When we allow non-whites into our country, when we allow Jews to take over things in our country, like our news and our curriculum and our government, we end up in a situation every single time where white people are the only ones that it's totally okay to persecute, it's totally okay to shame, it's totally okay to bash, it's totally okay to curse, ridicule, declare war against, declare that we ought to exterminate. I mean, you can literally get on YouTube right now and type in exterminate white people. Those 3 words, put it in quotation marks, and it will bring up video after video, multiples, that say exterminate the white people, exterminate white people. And it's none of them have ever been deleted. None of them ever had a strike. Why? Because they're niggers that posted it, because they're Indians that posted it, or fucking some other worthless non-white that posted it. And so it gets to stay. One of them's been on there 14 years. Says exterminate white people. So I don't give 2 shits what any of you worthless non-white parasite pieces of worthless garbage think about me or any other white people. You can complain and cry to YouTube all you want. All I'm going to do is start another channel. I'll start it all over again, you fucking piece of shit. I don't care. I'm not sheckling. I'm not trying to make a living off YouTube. Okay? I'm here to spread the truth to my people. And I don't give 2 shits what you or YouTube or any Jew on this earth thinks. I'm telling my people the truth, and I'm waking as many of my people up as I can, and I'm going to be called great in heaven by God, because I'm demanding that our people return to following God's way. And once we follow our God's way, our God will be removing you pieces of shit from our land. It says so right in our book. That isn't for you. It's called the white man's religion, not the Jews' religion, not the blacks' religion, not anybody's religion, the white man's religion. That's what the Holy Bible is. That's what the Holy Bible says. And the Holy Bible has confirmed that before, in times past, God has driven worthless parasites from our land before. And he promises he will do so again. And so I have no concern for how long. Well, I do have concern for how long it's going to take. I'm trying to get our people to obey God right away, because I want all of you removed from our country tonight, as soon as possible. Can't wait. And guess what? When all of you are gone, white people are going to rejoice. We're going to have such a good time. There are going to be parties in the streets across this entire country. That's how much you're not going to be missed. Not one of you blacks is going to be cried over. Not one of you non-white worthless parasites is going to be missed. No one's going to be like, oh my God, what are we going to do without Julio? What are we going to do without this worthless mata thing, whatever your weird ass name was? What are we going to do? What are we going to do without all the third world street shitters, y'all? What are we going to do without blacks attacking our kids every day at school, you guys? Oh my God. What do you mean we have a perfectly wonderful, beautiful country again all of a sudden? Man, white people are going to be celebrating in the streets. We're going to have 24-hour potlucks that go all day and night, going down the interstates of our states. Just be able to walk down Interstate 25 from table to table. Oh, man, barbecue. Oh, it's baked beans. We're going to have a nationwide fair across this whole thing. It's going to be the biggest celebration ever held in the entire face of the earth once we rid our country of the non-whites. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens in the next, say, 10 years, 15 years. Might not, but I hope it does. And, man, how awesome it's going to be, though. You don't even understand how 0% y'all will be missed. 0%. No one wants you here. No one cares that you're going to be gone. You know? And how weird it must be. I mean, for you white people listening in who are based, imagine this. Imagine being one of these worthless parasite non-whites who imposes yourself into a country where you don't belong, and then insist on staying even though the freaking people of that country don't like you and don't want you there. Imagine that. Imagine being one of those worthless pieces of shit parasites. Unbelievable. So, thank God. Thank you, God. I'm not one of those. And I hope for all of your sake, you non-whites who are listening in tonight that are all butthurt that I have a pro-white channel, first of all, go fuck your own selves in the face. And second of all, none of you have a problem with your own race having supremacy in your own race's country. All right, so There's nothing evil or wrong about white people having supremacy of our own countries. And so I am a white supremacist. I believe white people, not believe, I know for a fact that white people, and only white people, should hold absolute 100% full supremacy, unapologetic 100% supremacy in all of our white countries that we have created for our own selves. And I believe that Mexicans should enjoy Mexican supremacy, 100% Mexican supremacy, not a Jewish president like they have right now. Mexican president, Mexican parliament, or whatever you want to call their little Mexican version of that. Full Mexican government, full Mexican supremacy in Mexico. And I'm 100% down with full Japanese supremacy in Japan. I'm 100% down with full Chinese supremacy in China. I'm 100% down with 100% Arab supremacy in all Arab countries. And I'm even 100% supportive and down with 100% black supremacy in black ruled countries. But I'm not cool with the situation that the South Afrikaners are having to deal with, where the Jews took the white government from the white people there and gave it over to the blacks. That's the beast system, because beasts are not capable of running a proper government. That's why Christ understood and called it a system, not a government. I'm not cool with that situation and the ANC there and all of that. That was a white people's government that was stolen from them and handed over to the blacks. And that's exactly what the Jews are trying to do with the United States of America, trying to do with Europe, all the European countries. And so there are based white folks like myself who are wide awake, fully aware of what is happening, what they're up to against us. And yeah, so you're absolutely right. If you're thinking, oh, this guy's a white supremacist, yes, you nailed it. Good for you, little double-digit IQers. Eating mud and bugs paid off for you after all, it seems like, huh? Let's see. Let's see, what's the one? Furcon, whatever his weird-ass name is. He said, bitch, I'm scared to go in the supermarket because of y'all pale faces. Good! Don't ever go into our supermarkets again. In fact, if you're scared of us, get the fuck out of our country, please, today. That'd be great. Let's see here. Roots and Rizzo said Tyrone or Jose. Yeah, that's our problem. Those type of things. Tyrones and Jose's. Those are a huge part of our problem. But also the Coinblatt, Shlomo's, Nosewitz, things like that. Let's see. Complum 80 is here. He said Trump is a crypto Jew. I agree. I hate to say that because, it's so nice when you're listening to Trump, like tonight, watching him doing the address. It's so refreshing to hear a president say all the things he was saying tonight, that we're no longer going to tolerate DEI and corrupt or corrosive this and that and destructive this and things that ruin America that, and that he's doing away with it and he signed a bill to this and signed an order for that. It's so refreshing and it sounds so great. And it sounds like, thank God we finally have a based white man in office who's shitting all over these stupid ass non-white worthless parasites who've been robbing us blind like parasites and leeches for all these years. Thank God we finally have someone standing up and telling them to get effed. But no, what it is it's a lot of talk, but until I see actual real results in the real world, I have to accept that it's just that, and we know he's a wall kisser. We know he has the most awards given by Jews of anybody. And he was literally given awards on certain days that I'm not going to get into the depth of it all and everything, but they even have given him awards on specific days when other bad things were done to white people by them on purpose. There are so many examples. Not only that, Jared Kushner, every Republican, supposed Republicans, freaking, least favorite guy. It's Trump's stepson. He gave Ivanka to her, I mean, think about it now. If you were Trump and Ivanka was your daughter and you had some influence, as I'm sure Trump did, on whether or not she's allowed to marry a certain guy or not, or ought to marry some guy or not, marry into some family or not, you're gonna every guy in the world, Jared Kushner was like, oh yeah, Trump thought about it and was like, yeah, this guy, this is the right guy for Ivanka, Jared Kushner. Oh man. I guess we could refer back to the Trump tards that say like, oh, he just doesn't know how to pick them. Oh, that's for sure. If he picked Jared Kushner, he definitely don't know how to pick him. And there's no way Ivanka was attracted to Jared Kushner naturally, in a natural sense. There's no way that Ivanka looked at that goofy dweeb Jew and was like, oh man, that's who I want to make babies with. No, she had to be persuaded, convinced, something, influenced in some way to end up mating and being with Jared Kushner. There's just no way she was attracted to that fool, you know what I mean? Not saying he's a terribly unattractive, he's not like unattractive necessarily, I wouldn't say, but just the fact that he's a sniveling Jew and the fact that he's not really, there is no like key features about him, you know, other than he's rich, but that doesn't mean anything to Ivanka. Ivanka's already rich. So it's not like she's out desperate looking for a rich guy. So somehow that marriage was arranged. I'm calling that shit now. And I've already been saying that for a long time, but I've never actually said it on a stream. But I've already felt that for years and years. That marriage is arranged. There's no way that girl was attracted to that freaking dork. There's just no way. There's too many cool guys in the world for Ivanka, of all people, to be attracted to that dweeb. So, let's see. Furcon said, bitch, y'all can't cook. Okay, third worlder. Literally, I don't know if you realize this, but you're literally talking to people who have invented entire recipe books of cooking, while the non-whites eat mud and bugs and chase hyenas for dinner. So, not sure where you came up with that, but yeah, I promise you, white people can cook way better than any non-white ever could. Maybe y'all can cook monkey brains or hyena butts or something better than white people, because we're just not experienced with those particular critters. But even then, I think we'd probably end up cooking it better than y'all. Roots and Rizzo said, legal or not, they all have to go. Correct. And, you know, and I've said on multiple other streams, and I've said on almost everyone's chat I've ever been on, that legal non-whites, quote, legal, quote, non-whites, cost us even more money than the illegals do. Legal non-whites come here, they get the same assistance amount of money every week off of white people that the illegals do. And they get to steal a job from a white person. And all these Republican cucks are always telling them, get a job, get a job. No, I don't want them to get a job in my country. I want them to go the fuck home. I want them to go home. Okay, that's where they belong. Home. Third world. Third world shithole. That is the non-whites' home. I don't want them working at my job, and I don't want them working at any other job where I might have to patron. Okay, so all of you Republic cucks out here, you cuck-servative idiots telling non-whites, get a job, loser, get a job, get off our welfare, get a job. No, get on a plane is what you need to tell them. Get on a plane and get back to Cambodia, get back to Venezuela, get back to Nigeria, get back to Liberia, wherever you need to go. Get the F out of our white country. That's where you need to go. Not to a job, okay? That's taking a job from a white person. That means when I go there to patron, I got to deal with this third world idiot that I'm expecting to know how to do something for me at the place or provide me something I'm trying to pay for. The answer is not getting them jobs. The answer is removing them from our country. Like I explained earlier for folks who weren't here, the only reason Made in America meant anything to this world 50 years ago, okay? For those of you who are too young to understand because you're only just born in the last 20 years or something, so you don't know anything about shit yet. 50 years ago, Made in America was a huge deal. It wasn't even 50 years ago, 35 years ago. Any third world country would pay top dollar for anything made in America. I don't care what it is. It could be a pitcher that holds water. It could be plywood. It could be an automobile. It could be a radio. It could be anything. If it was made in America, if it said made in the USA or made in America on it, it was considered worth solid gold to the rest of the world's non-whites. Guess why made in America, made in the USA, being put on anything now means absolutely nothing to any non-whites anywhere in the world anymore. Because they know that non-whites live here and non-whites work here. And so if they buy some expensive device, they buy this oven, super nice oven from Whirlpool, says made in the USA, but Tyrone assembled it, okay? And Jorge packaged it. So it's got bolts missing in the heater little thing. So the little heater element's going to fall out one day, perhaps cause a fire. Jorge packed it, so it's got a nasty scratch across the front of it. So when you unpackage it at your home and it's so heavy and it's too late to try to send it back, well, you're going to have to live with a big old scratch on the face of it after you just paid $1,200 for it. Okay, that's why made in America doesn't mean shit anymore, because non-whites have a job in our country like the conservatives tell them to have, instead of telling them to get the F out of our country. And so I'm sick of, going beating around the bush over and over and over again. We have to freaking donate land, name it after our daughters who were slain by non-whites being in our country. Calling them illegals. Oh, if he'd just been here legal, man, maybe he wouldn't have killed her then. What the fuck does it matter if she was legal, if he was legal or illegal? He's a non-white in our country where he didn't belong, and he killed a white person because he was here. It doesn't make two fucks if he was legal or not, or illegal. What if he had been born and raised here his whole life? Would it have mattered? I challenge you, call Laken Riley's family right now and let them know, hey, good news, y'all. It turns out his paperwork had been finished with the Jews and he was legal after all. You think it's going to fucking matter? You think she's going to come back? You think she's going to pop out of the grave and go, oh, fuck, he was legal? Oh, never mind. So aggravating and frustrating. And they beat around the bush and avoid the giant elephant in the fucking room. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. We all need to be completely demanding now. Period. Dot. Just like all the conservatives wound up against the H-1B visa thing, which I was shocked that they did so, but they actually did. We need to keep that spirit. We need to keep that fire on his feet. We need to keep that whole refusal of, like, they were still cucked into Ramaswamy. They were freaking, now they're cheering him on for Ohio. The stupid asses, they already realized they didn't want him in our government as far as federal government control and all that stuff. Then he goes and runs for Ohio, and now they're cheering for him again. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? You idiots, do you not realize non-whites are non-whites, period, dot. It doesn't make a shit if they're legal, if they're pro-Trump. It doesn't fucking matter. They don't belong here. Good grief. And I'm fucking sick of and tired of having to freaking go back and forth with these people about it. When are they going to see the super obvious freaking elephant in the room? Oh, so aggravating. And someday it will be corrected. And this country will be an all-white nation again, like it once was. And when it's corrected, this country will start producing lots of white children again, and we will ban all forms of anti-reproduction for our people. We're going to ban all this horse shit about, remember in the 80s, well, most of you don't because you're probably too young, but the ones who are older than me or whatever, or my age, will remember. In the 80s, the Jews, while they were busy paying blacks to multiply like hotcakes, they were putting out commercial after commercial for white people to see that teenage pregnancy is a huge problem. Wear a condom, use a contraceptive, blah, blah, blah. While they were taking our money and paying blacks to multiply like hotcakes. So we will be banning all forms of propaganda that speak against, or speak to white people, I should say, speaking against or trying to convince them to be against multiplying rapidly and having lots of children. Okay, teen pregnancy is all there was in the freaking early 1900s. How you think we had millions and millions and millions and 200 million white people to be able to kill each other in wars for the Jews? Because of teen pregnancy. Ask your grandpa how old his oldest sibling was, or how old his parents were when his first sibling was born. His dad will have been perhaps 20 or 18, and his mom would have been, say, 16 or 18, right there around his age too, but they were both young, And the Jews knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to convince us to be smarter, more responsible adults before we finally decide to have a child like they were telling us. They just didn't want us having kids anymore. That's why they got rid of the drive-in theaters, which I explained in other streams, was a huge baby production machine for white people. And they first had to demonize emissions, car emissions, and all these other things so that they could eventually go, look, drive-ins are hugely wasteful. Everybody just sits here and runs their engines. That was the path they were going to take at the end of it all if they couldn't get us to get rid of drive-ins willingly. But instead, they came up with better ideas. They came up with creating sit-down theaters where we park our car and go in the sit-down theater, and they provided us food and comforts and air conditioning and every little thing to be as comfortable as possible, so we wouldn't want to do the drive-in thing anymore. And at some point, once we were so wowed by the sit-in theaters that we decided to just use those mostly, they were able to quietly shut down all the drive-in theaters. Well, when you're in an indoor sit-down theater, you can't get it on and make a baby in the back of the car. Okay, and that was the whole point of getting rid of the drive-in theaters in the first place. Those were massive baby-making machines back in the day for our people. And any other thing that caused white people to produce children, And like I've been posting on my community posts about the prom kangs and the prom queen, they pit blacks with white girls. This is a multifaceted attack. What it does, for one, is it ruins our white girl's big day. All right? She's worked hard. She's done all the right things. She's lived as intended. She's obeyed her parents. She's been a good girl. She's earned her way to prom queen. And now, on her big, most important day of her life up to this point, prom is the biggest deal to a girl at that age. That's literally the biggest moment of their life so far, And it's ruined now. Every white girl has, not every white girl, but thank God, but most white girls now, after going through all this hard work to earn their way to being respected by the whole school, to be voted as prom queen or homecoming queen or whichever dance it is, she now has to be forever pictured with this goofy, worthless nog that just chased a football or I dunked the ball or whatever, 2-digit IQ idiot standing with her, ruining her most important day picture ever, okay? And one of the other prongs of this attack on our daughters, by putting a prom kang in there with the prom queens, is it hopes to push other white girls because remember, every white girl there at the prom wishes that they had been picked as prom queen. So when they're sitting there looking at the girl who was picked prom queen, and they're all sitting there going, oh, I wish that was me, while they're sitting there telling themselves that they wish that was them, they're looking at that white girl standing there locked arms with a black taking photos. So what are they doing subconsciously? They're telling themselves, without realizing it, they're telling themselves, I wish I was that white girl taking pictures with that black guy right now. They don't think of it that way, but it's just a subtle, subliminal, it dupes them into thinking that being with a black is totally normal. And that leads me to the third prong of the attack, which is by having them as a prom kang with the prom queens and stuff like that, they're forcing us to accept that they're forcing our brains to be tricked into thinking that it's totally normal to have a black prom kang sometimes, hoping that we'll never notice, hey, wait a minute, but every year now it's a black. Every single year, we have all these white guys that are overachievers, straight A students, top of the football team, top of the athletic field, whatever they're in, track, basketball, whatever. We have white guys that are stellar in all those things, and they get straight A's, and they have freaking go above and beyond, and they serve the community also. Remember, you have to do all those things to be voted as prom king back in the day, you had to do community service. You had to do all these things, and the school voted that, yes, this guy is the most merit-based, most awesome, most attractive. Something had to be really special for the guy to win prom king. But now the school says, oh, we counted the votes, wink, wink, which really just means they decided and picked a nog and said that he got all the votes. And I guarantee if you went around to school and went, hey, did you vote for that Tyrone guy for prom king? No, you didn't. And you go to the next person, hey, did you vote for that Tyrone dude for prom king? No, you didn't. I bet if you went all around the school and asked, nobody votes for one of those blacks to be prom king. The school assigns him as the prom king on purpose to pit him with the white girl, ruining the white girl's big day. She has to sit there and smile and pretend she's happy being pictured with a stupid nog anyway, because it's her big day. She can't let the fact that she doesn't have a beautiful white guy to take her photos with be ruined. She can't let that ruin her day. So she's got to just be pictured with this freaking stupid Tyrone idiot. You know? So, and also, and there are more prongs to that attack. You know, it's about angering white dads. It's about, you know, having the picture of the nog in our white family homes from now on. If you want her picture of her big day in your house on display, well, now you got a picture of her with a black in her house on display in your own home. Ugh. Gross. So, skinny something here, skinny pen 15 said, down with the whites. Well, if you mean you're down with us, I'm cool with you. But if you're saying down with the whiteys, well, you're not welcome here. You can go somewhere else. And the thing is, like, I don't care if all of you stick around and listen, because I don't care if any of you know what I think about you. I think you're all worthless garbage. You're worthless parasites. It has nothing to do with what I think. It's reality. Okay, I'm not even giving you my opinion. The fact is, you are worthless parasites. You are literally leeches mooching off of white people's country. You know that you could get on a plane tonight and be in your own home country where you belong first thing in the morning before it's time for Frosted Flakes. You could already be there. But instead, you purposely, all of you purposely, willingly stay put in a white country because you don't want to give up your access to white people. Because white people are better than you. And you understand that. And that's why you don't want to leave. If you thought you were as good as white people or even better than white people, you'd be on the first plane out of here. You'd be like, what the hell am I doing around here having to be stuck, being held down by these stupid white people? Down with these whiteys. I'm going to get on a plane and be back in my third world hellhole tomorrow. Y'all know it. We know it. Let's see here. Complum said, you're mostly correct. The Jew has been destroying Gentiles for ages. Yes, that is true. And it's not mostly correct. It's absolutely correct. That has totally been the case. Not to toot my horn about that situation. I'm just saying that is the fact. You know, it's not mostly correct. It is 100% correct that they are the ones who've been destroying us for all this time. And so that is why they are the ones who have to be addressed and have to be removed from our country. You know, 109 other countries already figured this out. So it's way past time for the United States to finally become the 110th country who has figured that out. Roots and Rizzos said, the first people in the Americas were the Clovis. They were blonde hair, blue eyes. Even before the Vikings, they were here before the, quote, natives. Yes, I'm sure the Clovis were too. And, you know, the thing is, a lot of those things sometimes are attributed to things like the Clovis or the Nords, when really, and granted, the Nords did write on a stone. They carved on a stone in 1000 AD up in Canada. So we do know the Nords were here. But I'm saying that there will be some times where we will find pre-flood Adamic race people in America, ancient bodies buried somewhere, and they will actually be the pre-flood white people. But yes, you're still right about the Clovis and all that. There were blondes here even before the Nords, way before the feathers ever came here. And so that's totally true. Skinny Pen 15 said, you got a family wreath? Actually, I have a family crest, if that's what you're asking. I do have a family crest. I'm European, so I do have, and all white people have a family crest. And as a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned that because I was going to bring that up in another stream. I even thought about making a specific video only about that topic where only white people have family crests. All right. Now, that doesn't mean a nog with the last name Williams, which is a white person last name, can't look up the last name Williams and go, oh, look, I got a family crest. No, you don't. You have no family crest because you're using a European's last name and probably a European's first name if you're going by things like Mike or Tom or whatever. And so you have a white man's first name and a white man's middle name and a white man's last name that do not belong to you. They're just stolen names, stolen from white people, assigned to you by Jews. Now, your parents are probably the ones who picked your name, and they're black, not Jews, right? Or, and they're whatever, and not Jews. But the bottom line is the very first blacks that came here, that the Jews first brought here, that's what set off blacks having white people's last names. Now, y'all are taught in schools and everywhere, the Jews parade around with the mantra that white slave owners were raping the black females, and that's why y'all were given names like Jones and Williams, because the Jones who owned you, because the Jones white guy who owned you was raping your great-great-grandmammy. And so after she had a mongrel kid, which by the way wouldn't have been black like you are, pure black, and could never produce a pure black like you, therefore that story could never be the case. That's how you ended up with the Williams name or the Jones name, because your grandmammy was raped and had kids. But that's not the case because, again, what I just explained, if a white mates with a black, okay, a black child is not produced. A mongrel is produced, all right? A mongrel will then mate with, say, a black. Let's say a mongrel mates with a black. They will not produce a black child. They'll produce another mongrel. Mongrels cannot produce a pure blood race, okay? Comprehend this in your soul forever. A mongrel cannot produce a pure blood race of any kind with any other pure blood race upright biped that it may mate with. So if a mongrel mates with a black, it produces a mongrel. If that mongrel mates with a black, it produces a mongrel. If that mongrel produces or mates with a black, it produces a mongrel. Okay, so there is no such thing as these black Africans walking around in our country named last name Jones and Smith and Williams and Johnson. None of them grandmas were raped by white people. They weren't even owned by white people. Jews are who owned blacks in our country. They are who brought them here, who bought them in Africa, paid Muslims to boat them here. Not white people. White people didn't boat them here. Muslims did. Jews paid Muslims to boat them here, and then Jews owned them and sold and traded them here in America. Not white people. And Jews did so using white people's names that they first had changed their names to. Okay, so when you read posters in the 1600s and 1700s saying Negroes for sale, contact John Adams. Okay, when people would read that sign, they wouldn't know that the guy's name is really Shlomo Coinblatt. Okay, if the guy had put his real name there, everyone would have known that Jews are who are buying and selling and owning blacks in America. So instead, they changed their names to white people names. The Jew would change his name to John Adams or Joe Smith or, Herbert Williams. And so when you would see the wanted, Negro ran away, $500 reward, contact Robert Smith. It doesn't sound like a Jew. Anybody who reads that sign would immediately deduce that Robert Smith must be a white man. But if they had just put their real name on the poster, long nose, Coinblatt, everyone would have known it was a Jew who was owning the blacks. And I like to ask white people this, and I have done this plenty of times in person with people, with white people I'm interacting with, who still believe or who have been duped into continuing to believe that white people owned blacks as slaves back in the day. I like to ask them, well, how many blacks would you own? And they're like, what? I'm like, well, how many blacks would you own? And every time it's the same answer. They'd be like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to own any. I would. I'm like, okay, well, that's the same amount that all white people would want to own. Okay, the white people back in the day wanted nothing to do with blacks, just like you don't want anything to do with blacks around your house. Real straightforward stuff. And so it was. I don't know who first managed to convince white people that, you know, that we would enjoy having blacks around, but only very few white people were ever convinced of any such thing. In fact, I would say the only white people who ever had blacks as slaves would have been crypto Jews, okay, or Freemasons who were obeying the Jewish process, okay, because that's what Freemasonry is. It's for white men to sell their souls to Satan and obey Jewry, obey the Jews' commands. And so I imagine if there had been any white guys at all willing to own blacks on their land, which I just can't imagine it at all, but if there was even one somewhere in the country who was willing to have blacks on their land, having to feed them every day, having to hope that when it's a 3-day trip to town to get supplies for the month. Oh, you're going to leave Tyrone and all these other click noise upright bipeds at your farm with your wife and your little daughters, and you expect them not to be raped and killed when you get back 3 days later? Are you retarded? Do you really think you could have a life like that? How many big Tyrones could you own at your house? I mean, ask yourself that right now. How many crazy psycho blacks could you own at your house right now? You couldn't. Why? Because they're blacks. You can't own them like that. All right? There's no way for you to just free range blacks around your house without them raping and killing you if you're trying to own them as slaves. And that's ridiculous. The whole concept of it is the stupidest thing ever to believe. And so, but Jews are not cucked about blacks. Jews aren't cucked about anybody. Jews will happily rule over blacks, whip them, chain them, everything that they shame white people about. Jews will do that unapologetically to blacks or any other non-Jews for that matter. And they'll tell you with a smile on their face that they'll do so. So while you got the non-whites coming in here going, oh, this guy's racist, this guy's whatever, you ain't seen shit. Wait till you meet a group of rabbis that rule over you someday as your master. They're going to look at you right in your face as they have their freaking servant put chains directly on your wrists and ankles as they shackle you to their freaking chain gang of other blacks they own. They're going to just smile in your face and go, you're not a Jew, so you're getting locked up with the rest of the blacks, and you're going to be one of our slaves, buddy. And they don't care if you call them the scary R word. They don't care what you call them. They own your butt, and they know it. And so they don't care. You call them all scary R word you want. They'll just laugh in your face as they freaking whip you on your back with a whip. Just like they blamed the white people doing to the blacks back in the day, which wasn't true. And so, circling back Jen Psaki style all the way back to how blacks have the last names they have, they only have white people's last names because Jews assigned them those last names. So when Jews brought blacks over here, they purposely gave them white people's names, knowing that in the future they would train their posterity 200 or 300 years in the future to blame white people for being the ones who owned them. And they knew all the way back then that they were going to make up these stories about how the whole reason blacks have the name Williams or Jones or Johnson or Smith or whatever is because our ancestors were raping their ancestors back then, and then they would give them their name? That makes no sense. You don't rape no chicken and be like, oh, you're pregnant after I raped you? I hereby name our kid my last name. What? That would have disgraced the white man's family. That would have made the white man leave his woman. It would have ruined his family. His entire family would have disowned him. He would have been a disgrace to his Christian church. There's no such thing as any of that. Much less, oh, honey, I knocked up the Nog female that we own, and I'm going to name her baby after our family and everything. Give him the Williams name. What do you think, hon? Oh, and by the way, the kid came out 100% black, not mongrel at all. Don't know how that happened either. But somehow Tyrone Biggins came out 100% black, not one drop of white in him. Supposed to be half my kid and half a black female's kid, but somehow he's 100% pure black African, even all the way to this day in 2025. They're as black African as they just stepped off the boat. But they're trying to convince you, and Jews are trying to convince you to believe that some white ancestor is in their past. No, they would be a mongrel. They wouldn't be a black. It's straight up, it's straight up common sense. A mongrel cannot produce a pure black. So every one of these blacks you see in America who are obviously clear as day, plain as freaking day, pure blacks, and there's nothing mongrel about them, that means they have nothing but pure black in them, all the way from Africa to right there. There's not a white person in their family tree. They're not a white person in their family tree anywhere, or they wouldn't be blacks. How more obvious can it be? You're either black or you're a mongrel. You're either white or you're a mongrel. You're either Indian or you're a mongrel. You're either Mexican or you're a mongrel. You're either this or you're a mongrel. But you cannot be an all black and somehow have a white person in your past. And the same applies, like I've said before, to white people who have been cucked into teaching all their family that they have some Indian in their past. Oh, your great-great-grandma was a Navajo Indian. Bullshit. Okay? If you're a white person and you blush and you have white people hair and you have white people eye color, you are not part Indian. There is no Indian in your past. Because guess what? Everyone in your entire family would have black hair and be a mongrel. You wouldn't have your blonde-headed dad and your red-headed mom telling you that, oh, yeah, your great-great-great-grandpa was Choctaw Indian. That wouldn't be the case. They would all be black-haired mongrels telling you how your great-great-grandma was a Choctaw or a Navajo or a Iroquois or whatever, So in the same understanding, neither can come from either. Now, let's take that same understanding a step further and go all the way back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were white people. They only produced white babies. There is no way for a white couple, no matter how many children they produce, Adam and Eve could have produced 250 children. All 250 children would be white, were white, however many they had. There is no such thing as a white couple that, wouldn't you know, honey, we accidentally farted out an Indian. Or, oh my gosh, babe, somehow anomalously we spit out a black kid. There's no such thing as any of that. Now, a lot of white people understand that already. And so, especially in the pro-white world, where they understand that Adam and Eve are the parents of the white race, that Adam and Eve are the beginning of mankind. But they try to say that the other upright bipeds are mankind also, just a different kind that came before us. But that's not true. The ones before us are not, like when God speaks in Genesis, he's talking about Adam and Eve when he says he created man. And then when he re-talks about Adam later on in Genesis, he's just reiterating the creation of Adam that he had mentioned earlier. He's not talking about he created one kind of mankind and then later on he created Adam. No, he was talking about the same event, both instances. The Bible likes to reiterate in Genesis. It reiterates things. And so it was just covering the creation of Adam again in another segment later on. And so you have to understand the Bible is written so that non-whites cannot understand it. Okay? And so when you understand IQ and all these things and how white people maintain a 3-digit IQ much higher than the beasts of the field, then you can finally understand, and how none of them ever had a written language or wrote books or anything, and only white people did, and Asians. That can hopefully get you to see the obvious point that the Bible is not written for non-whites to understand. It is specifically and purposely written so that only white people can understand it. And this is why sometimes the Bible will reiterate things. So a non-white comes along and tries to read it chronologically, all in order, hoping to understand it, but he doesn't comprehend that the Bible is artfully reiterating, the creation of Adam. And it does that 3 times about Adam in Genesis. It reiterates the creation of Adam 3 different times. It's not talking about 3 different kinds of Adam kind that were made chronologically in order. It's reiterating. But non-whites are expected not to comprehend that. Okay, so when you look at Adam and Eve in Genesis, they only produced the white race, period, dot. And so when you comprehend that the entire Bible is written only for Adam and Eve's descendants, it's not written for all the other creatures of the world that God created. It's only written for Adam and Eve and their descendants. Adam and Eve's descendants are the white people. So therefore, the Bible, God's word, is only written for white people. It's not written for anyone else. And our people were duped by the Jews into believing that we should go out based on a scripture where it says, go out and teach all the creatures and nations of the world. They took that and duped our white people into being convinced to try to woo over all the non-whites of the world to our race. But that is not what God meant by that. God meant go teach all the white people of the world the gospel, because he knew that there were millions of white people all over the world who had not yet heard the gospel, who had been gone from our congregation in Israel for so long, for so many generations, for so many eons, that they had created their own creation stories and they had started cucking themselves away to pagan gods. And so that was the whole point of sending the disciples out to all the world. It was to all the world of white people. God does not concern himself with us trying to woo over raccoons. When do you see us try to round up all the animals we can find in the wild and have a church service for them and try to teach it? Have you ever walked up to a giraffe and asked him if Jesus Christ is his Lord and Savior? If he follows Jesus? No, because that's not what they were talking about. They're talking about white people. When it says all the creatures and nations of the world, it just means white people. And you could argue, oh, well, what's the creatures part then? I don't know. It's just artful. It's just artful. It's artful, writing. But it doesn't mean go teach animals and go teach non-whites and convince them. God created religions and assigned them to each non-white race. God created Hinduism for the freaking Indians. God created voodoo and created all 120 gods or whatever and assigned them to the blacks. God created Buddhism and assigned it to the Asians. It's okay for them to obey their or to practice their religions and follow their gods and practice their entire religious thing. Okay, they have all of us white people cucked into worrying about what Arabs do and how they treat their women and how oppressive they are to their women and all this stuff. That's not our business. Okay, it's become our business because now we allow them in our own country where they don't belong around our people. So now all of a sudden, their freaking staunch religious beliefs are clashing with our society. So we've had to make it our business now. But we didn't have to. We could have made them stay in their own country where they belong, and we wouldn't have to give 2 craps what they're up to over there. And that is what I want. I want white people to have our own countries back, and I want the non-whites to not be bothered by us anymore. I don't want non-white countries bossed around by the United States. Okay? I don't want us over in Arab countries telling Arabs what they can and can't do. And I don't want us over in Israel bombing and shooting and blowing away and genociding Palestinians on behalf of the Jews so they can have some more free land that they don't deserve and didn't earn. I'm not down with us going anywhere and telling any non-whites how to conduct business in their non-white country. And the only time that I think that we should ever intervene or boss around a non-white country who is totally contained among themselves and not trying to infiltrate our country, not trying to bother us in any way, the only way we should intervene with them and boss them around is if what they're doing is so bad that it's causing a worldwide disturbance. You know, like if the blacks started creating so much garbage and so much pollution that it literally started ruining an entire section of the ocean, then fine. We could go there and intervene, boss them around, be like, look, y'all got to clean up your act. Stop acting like idiots, you know, freaking clean up your shit around here. Something. But I'm actually all for letting the non-whites live in their own, fester in their own mess. We don't need to help them. We don't need to bother them. And because we have started helping them, that's why they are in such huge numbers now. In the 1980s, blacks in Africa were only like several million. That was it. Wrap your mind around that. All you white people listening right now, wrap your mind around that. Before we started sending money to Africa in the 80s, there were only several million blacks in Africa. Why? Because they didn't live very long. They would eat each other. They would get killed hunting. They would get killed fighting other groups. They would get killed just randomly by being injured and it getting infected and them not having any technology or medicine or anything. Even though National Geographic is always teaching us these new freaking ancient genius remedies that they have by mixing mud and feces and bugs together. So the bottom line is I'm not for us bossing all the non-whites around the world and bossing around their countries. That's not what the kind of white supremacist that people always picture us being, or that's the kind of white supremacist that people always picture us being, but that's not the kind of white supremacist that any real white supremacist is. A white supremacist is just someone who wants our own white countries to be ruled by us white people. That's it. And that's completely normal. It's expected. It's natural. It's correct. It's proper. And on top of all of it, which would disregard all the rest if all the rest didn't apply, it's biblical. So biblical is number one. Since it's biblical, we don't need all the others. We don't need to care if it's proper. We don't need to care if it's prudent. We don't need to care if it's counterproductive or productive. We don't need to care about any of that. All we need to care about is the fact that it's biblical. And God told us we have dominion over the entire earth and all that's in it. So technically, we have the God-given right, if we so chose, to conduct business over the others and tell the other countries what they can and cannot do. That's actually why I don't have too much of a problem with Trump telling other countries what they can and can't do right now. I actually don't have too much of a problem with that because that's the first president we've had in a long time who's actually saying those things to them out loud. Whether it's BS and political theater or not, the fact that he's saying it is going to train other white people behind him. Our Generation Z and Generation Alpha and whatever, they're going to see this and hear these words coming from him and think, wow, that's how a strong white man carries business, and holds the United States up, by telling the others what they can and can't do. Why? Because we hold all the power. The United States, I don't know if you've looked at pie charts for what we contribute and what we maintain and what we operate of percentage-wise of all these other groups, international groups the Jews have created and all these things. White people pay for all of it and white people rule all of it. Jews rule it, but really white people could take rule back of it if we wanted to. So the bottom line is America is the superpower of the world by far. It's not even a close comparison. And China is the second place, but the thing is, China, even though they outnumber us and they probably even have built more weaponry than we have now, by all the population they have and all the staunch just communism of them just making all their people be worker ants like slaves and build and build and build and build. They've probably created twice as many weapons as we have already. But they don't have the intelligence that white men have. And so with all of their extra ammunition and all their extra armory and all their extra whatever they could ever create, Navy and Air Force and everything, we will still dominate them. We would still obliterate them in a war. And they know it. And that's why they don't try to mess with us. And that's why they try to keep good relations with us. And that's why the Jews are always trying to use Alex Jones and all these other idiots to spook you into being worried about and focused on China all the time. Because China's harmless to us. But they want you worried about the boogeyman China instead of the Jews themselves, who are in control of our country and flooding us with billions of non-whites to destroy us every day. So you got cucks like Alex Jones, or you got idiots like Alex Jones paid to have all the conservatives worried about shy-coms, you know? Next time you ever hear a conservative mention shy-coms, ask them what one looks like. Like, you ever seen a shy-com in person? You're going to go, what? Like, yeah, well, you're always worried about shy-coms. I figure, you know, since they're such a great threat to the country that you're always worried about it. I mean, have you ever seen one? What do they look like? I want to be on the lookout for one. I want to know what a shy-com is. If I see one get around me, I want to be aware and alert of it. They just be like, I mean, I guess they're Chinese, right? And, okay, so they're Chinese. They're short, I imagine, since they're Chinese, right? Yeah, okay. Do they dress a certain way? Should I be on the lookout for certain kind of clothing they might wear? Do they have a uniform or something I should be looking for? There's no such thing as shy-coms. That's just a stupid made-up thing to get conservatives to worry about little Chinamen who are completely harmless to our country. They're all over in China working their butt off, creating garbage for you to buy on Amazon. But Alex Jones is over here screaming in the freaking TV or into the freaking people's phone screen that they need to worry about shy-coms. Pay no attention to the Jews flooding your country with billions of non-whites every day. Worry about these imaginary little Chinamen. Oh, it's so pathetic. Our whole group is so broke up over so many different things. It's no wonder we can't get an organized pro-white group together yet, because we have all these idiots like Alex Jones, who's got half of them off in that world. You got Mark Dices, who's got them half off in another world where I mean, and don't get me wrong, I like Mark Dice, but he's a gatekeeper too, you know? And another thing is, you know, he has gotten lost off on other types of conspiracy crap over the years. You know, he used to worry about aliens and every freaking thing else back in the day. You know, because he wasn't developed yet. Now he acts like he's known all the same stuff all along and that his books were consistent about everything all the way back in the day, and they weren't. He's morphed along the years, you know, as he's figured out more and more of the truth. But meanwhile, he was pumping out books like he was already the genius who understood it all way back in the day. And then look what he did with Trump shirts. He made millions of dollars off selling people Trump shirts, you know? And then when Trump started reneging on some of his stuff, well, what did he do? He just wasn't peddling the Trump shirts for that episode or two, you know, until Trump finally did something again that put him back in a positive light. Then here comes the Trump shirt ad at the end of his video again, you know. And because we have all these different gatekeepers, we have Jews who have flooded our country, or are flooded the internet with all these Israel first idiots like Ben Shapiro's a Jew, so I mean, of course he's going to be Israel first. But I mean, all these other ones who are crypto Jews, or they're just Jews who look like white people, but they're Jews, you know. And of course, that's who was given the supposed Epstein file binder, was a bunch of Jews first freaking influencers, as they called them. And they had a great story about why they did it, to make the media jealous and whatever. And that, yeah, okay. But bottom line is, it just so happened to be that all of them were Yiddy diddlers or Yid's first obeyers, you know. And so that's what we're supposed to be focused on. Our actual enemy, not these imaginary enemies that we don't have, that don't even exist. We're supposed to be focused on what's actually our problem. You know, imagine if you were on a battlefield and your general was telling you to worry about some soldiers in some far off land that have nothing to do with the war you're in, nothing to do with the soldiers just a few thousand feet in the other direction ahead of you that are shooting at you. Imagine if they're like, don't even focus on them. Worry about some country super far away. and worry about some soldiers that are super far away that can't shoot at you. They don't even know you're over here in this field. You know, they're 10,000 miles away. Worry about them. Don't worry about all these bullets flying at you from those guys right over there. That's what's being done to us. We're being told to worry about imaginary boogeymen that don't exist, while we have blacks slaughtering our women every day, slaughtering our children every day, slaughtering our elderly every day. We have Indians trying to grope and rape our women. We have Mexicans freaking taking jobs from people. And also we have the Mexican cartels, you know, we have the drug cartels here. We have our own government paying the Mexican cartels to grow pot in our own country to sell to white people at the dispensaries. And that's still a thing, by the way. Just because Trump's president now, that hasn't changed. Go by any pot farm right now and pull in its entrance and park your car for 5 minutes. And I promise you, here will come a truck creeping down the road. An SUV will come creeping down the drive from the nursery. And it'll have 4 Mexicans in it. And they'll all have the barrels of their AR-15 or whatever rifle they have poking up above the window line so that you can see that they all have a rifle. I know firsthand because I've broke down at a pot farm. I broke down at the entrance of one. And that's exactly what happened. Within 2 minutes, here comes an SUV full of Mexicans creeping up the drive. And they had the barrels of their rifles poking up above the window line of all 4 doors of the truck. So I could see all 4 of them had a rifle with the barrel sticking up. And I won't go into the rest of the story. I marched right over there and told them that I was broke down and I'll be leaving when I'm ready. And they just sat there and stared at me. And I went back to my car and waited. And I just kept staring at them and they kept staring at me. And when I felt like leaving, I finally left. But the bottom line is, and of course, that was a long time ago before Trump was president. But I'm just saying, you know, it's still that way now. I guarantee you if I was still down there and I went there, I guarantee you right now, the same Mexican cartels are running those pot farms. You know, and they're getting rich off that. They're getting rich off our white people. And guess what? Mexicans don't give a shit about spraying poison on your pot. All right, so guess what the government does? The government says, hey, we're allowing you to be alien foreigners in this land, growing pot for these white people, but we want you to spray this on it. Or we want you to put this in the water that you water the plants with. The Mexicans are going to go, si, senor. They're not even going to question it. So then you come along buying pot from a dispensary thinking you're all slick shit now because the government allows you to smoke pot all you want. All you had to do is give up your gun rights and go get a card. Well, now you freaking are smoking weed from the government. You think the Jews really want you to have the best, finest pot available? at your fingertips, at every corner, at every intersection available? Like it is now? You really think that the Jews are just looking out for you? Oh, you like smoking pot? Here, we're going to hook you up. We're going to just fill the whole country with dispensaries. We'll have all these Mexicans we invaded your country with grow you all the pot you want, whitey. A lot of conservatives back in the day really thought that was the case. And their excuse for that, believing that, was, look, they want to have all of us stoned and dumbed down so that we don't put up a fight, so that we don't resist. And that sounds like good logic, but that's not how the Jays operate. The Jays like to poison people. Okay? Poisoning. That's how Jays like to do things. So, knowing that the Jays are the ones sponsoring all the growth of all this pot to be sold in all these dispensaries, you really think they're not telling the Mexicans to put some chemical in it that they give the Mexicans to put in it? So the moral of that story, sub-story, is don't be buying weed from a dispensary. Okay, don't trust that crap. I would not recommend buying anything from a dispensary. But moving back to the non-whites themselves versus boogeymen that we're being told to worry about. You got the Mexicans doing that, poisoning our people through the dispensary pot. And it's all government sanctioned, government paid for, everything. Well, we are paying for it anytime government pays for it, but government sponsored, government approved, government contracted. They're the ones who came up with the whole idea and proposed it to the Mexicans and everything. And so, this is 100% government sanctioned. And so we're supposed to worry about imaginary shycoms, which can't even be described because it's an imaginary thing that doesn't exist. We're supposed to worry about that instead of worrying about the 40 white women that blacks slaughtered today. We're not supposed to worry about the blacks. They slaughtered 40 white women today, but don't worry about them. They're not our problem. The Jews let 14,000 non-whites and more into our country today alone through our airports. But don't worry about them. Worry about China. Worry about little Chinamen. Worry about Shycoms. And then we have, a whole slew of other broke up divisions of our people. We have based white people who, they're only based to a certain degree. Then we have ones who are fully cucked into paganism, but think of themselves as highly based. And because we have all these different factions of our people, all these separated groups, we cannot form them together into one solid group to unite the whites, like one of the commenters had posted. It's unfortunate that we haven't been able to do it at this point, but that is why, Christianity is supposed to be the backbone of our people. If Christianity was still the backbone of our people, if it was and I'm not talking about cucked Christianity, Judeo-Christianity, that whole oxymoron like we're under right now, where we invite any kind into our church and every church is third world multi-culti hellhole now, and where the churches cuck away food to all the invaders fresh off the boat. I'm not talking about that kind of Christianity. I'm talking about real Christianity. Pro-white, white man's religion, white man's only religion, Christianity like it's supposed to be. Like our ancestors were who founded this country, like our ancestors were all the way into 1900 and something. If we used that as the spine, as the frame for our people again, then our people could all one at a time start coming. That's what the gospel is, by the way. Going out and spreading the gospel to all the world was to reestablish our spine. It was to reestablish a frame where all white people could finally recognize, all my white people are hooked and hanging on to this big frame over here. Let me do that also. And that's what that was for. It was to create a structure for all of us to have belonging in together. And because we have pagan cucks and we have Jew-obeyer cucks, Judeo-Christian oxymoron cucks, and all these things, we are atomized right now. Between that and individualism and every white person being for themselves, having to get up and go to a job all their own every day, there's no community, no group effort. And meanwhile, the Jews work together in lockstep, in community, in group effort. And that's why they advance beyond us in political matters and all these other things, because every day when you get up as a white person and you have to be at your job at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, you have to be there all day by yourself, not a group of white people with you, just you yourself got to show up with, and yeah, there are other white people there, but they're all individuals too, who've all had to show up at this one random place that you all happen to work together. And you work together at that one place. But then when you get off, all of you go your own separate ways back to the other parts of town where you live, far away from each other. There is no real true community and cohesiveness anymore. We don't have full community working where we live in the community and work in the community and other people live in the community with us and work at the same place with us. It's not that way now. And America did used to be that way, and so did Europe. So it can be done again. It will be done again. I don't know how long it's going to be before it is, but it will. And we have to just push that and force it. And that's the way it's going to have to be, you know. And of course, once we start keeping God's way the way he intends us to keep it, the way he intends us to obey him, God will bless our endeavor and even take over, you know, and basically, how do I say it? He'll put his hand in front of us and literally block whatever resistance is going to try to stand in our way as we progress forward. But God will not do those things for us if we do not behave as we are intended by him. And he says so all through the Bible. He says, if, over and over again, if you keep my commandments, if you follow my way. He doesn't say, I'm going to do it for you no matter what. He literally says, if, in the beginning, every time, if you follow my commandments, if you love me and obey my way, if you da-da, then I will, you know, drive the invaders out and I will heal your land. But it's only if we do what he says. So, but to get back to Trump's address tonight, of course, hearing the things he said was very nice to listen to. It was very refreshing. It makes you want to thank God and be grateful that we have a based, golden-haired, blue-eyed white man in charge again, saying the things he's saying. I do like that he shamed the other side, even though it's a ruse, even though it's political theater, even though he's been lifelong friends with all those on the other side who are getting paid to pretend to be anti-Trump. I still like that he shamed them because, again, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, any of them who watch the speech later on in the future as they become adults and start trying to figure out things in life, they will see that and realize that it's okay to say those things and that it's okay to piss off the opposing side and that it's okay to not only piss them off, but shame them. You know, and even if that's not Trump's intent, even if Trump's intent was to just keep the white people duped into thinking he's doing stuff for us and all that, and even if all that shaming was all just theater, and he doesn't really mean any of it, it inadvertently and accidentally will teach our Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids that it's okay to do so, that it's okay to have disdain for your enemies who hate you. It's okay to shame your enemies who hate you and who work against you and try to destroy you. It's okay to call out your enemies who you've busted red-handed trying to wipe you out. It's okay to be impolite to them. It's okay to seek justice against them, even revenge. And I want our Gen Z and Gen Alpha and millennials and all that to see that and hear that from the most powerful man in the world. So if Trump did us any favor tonight, it was those things for Gen Z and Gen Alpha to see and hear from him later on and learn that it's okay to say and think those things against your enemy, you know, even if he didn't mean it. Let's see here. But yes, I do have a family crest, which I guess you meant wreath by that. Miss Loyal White Knight said exactly, Roots. Let's see, I'm going to skip the non-white. Let's see, another non-white comment, sick people in this chat. No, that would be you, actually. All of us, myself included, are based and 100% fixed in reality. Roots and Rizzo said, all of human history, land has been inhabited and conquered by other people. That's true. There are plenty of places, maybe not all over the entire surface of the whole earth, but like most places where you find upright bipeds, they have either conquered someone and have that spot, or were conquered at some point and then, you know, won their land back, or, you know, had a reconquista later on and survived it. But believe it or not, there are still some places, like a lot of places where white people have went and settled. We actually didn't have to fight anyone off or conquer anyone to take the land and start using it. For example, South Africa. When we went to South Africa as white people and established ourselves there, There were no blacks around where white people went and established. Had there been blacks there, it would have been a problem immediately upon arrival. And so we wouldn't have had any time at all to start building things. We wouldn't have had any opportunity to do so because we would have been too busy fighting off blacks. Just like how when we first got to America and we stumbled across Indians, they started shooting arrows at us and we had to start fighting them right away and defending ourselves from them. We couldn't be busy building a church or building a community, building a neighborhood while we had these Indians shooting at us at first. We first had to deal with the problem. And then once we dealt with the problem, the land was open and we were able to, and peace and quiet was at bay. And so we were able to start building things. But as more Indians would stumble into us, we'd have to defend ourselves again and again. And so that's the same thing that happened in South Africa. When we got to South Africa, we didn't run across any blacks at first. We just had a peaceful, open area of jungle and we started building. And as blacks would stumble into us, we would have to defend ourselves from them. And then as more and more blacks discovered that we were there and we started building more and more of a society there, well, then more and more blacks started coming around, watching from a distance, cargo culting us and all that other stuff, trying to mimic us and trying to figure us out and understand what we were up to. And then sure enough, they would work their way toward us closer and closer. And some of them would try to attack us. Some of them would be curious and just walk right up to us and try to interact with us. And for those that did that, white people cucked away jobs to them. Said, hey, you want to earn some money? And of course, they didn't know what money was. But white people explained to them the concept of it and said, hey, if you work here all day, we'll give you a little something at the end of the day. You can use that as money to go buy something else you want. And as blacks started figuring out what we were explaining to them, they started liking the idea. Some of them did. And so we employed some of them. And then the Jews later on turned that into, oh, we were slaving them and whipping them and using them as slaves. None of that's true. They wanted to work with us because they wanted to be around the white people and learn what the white people did and all these stuff. And so we were cucking jobs away to them. And they got paid. They weren't slaves. And even now, when you hear about the lithium mines over there, you hear all these sob stories from the leftists and liberals and bleeding heart idiots and stuff. They'll say stuff like, oh, the lithium mines, black African slaves are over there slaving away for your lithium batteries. No, they're not. They're willing workers over there in those mines. And yeah, they get paid almost nothing a day, but they still get paid something, and they're there on their own volition. No one at the at the lithium mines in Africa are slaves. So, but everything we ever do, like right now with blacks being our police officers and all this other crap, 100 years in the future, Jews will have it all construed if we don't have them kicked out of our country by then. They'll have the whole story of history turned around where we were forcing blacks to be our cops and that they were slaves. And if they didn't arrest people that day, we would beat them and all this other stuff. They'll literally have absurd stories like that. As dumb as it sounds with me telling you that now, that is the type of stories they will have in the future. Just like if I were to tell you, if you and I were standing at the in South Africa, say 100 years ago, and we're employing a bunch of blacks and they're getting paid, every week or every day, and they're working, stripping the rubber trees so we can have rubber for our tires or whatever. If I were to have sat there right then and told you, all these blacks here that we pay to do all this work, in 100 years, the Jews will be teaching all the white people in America that these were all our slaves. You would laugh and think, what a hilarious, ridiculous story. The Jews would never try some dumb story like that, in the future. But that is what they do. And that is what they did. So that is what they'll do in the future. They will show pictures of black cops or black this or black that employees we have at grocery stores and stuff. And they'll be like, look, all these blacks were having to work for free. They were slaves at white people's grocery stores. And they were slaves for white people's police enforcement and all this stuff. And they'll have a whole story created about it of how we punished them if they didn't perform correctly and all this stuff, just like they have their whole stories created about the black slave trade era. All the stories you hear about, even during the civil rights garbage, like the And I know most of you who view this channel already know this, but like the Anne Frank and all those freaking stories of these courageous blacks and courageous Jews standing in the freaking, trying to resist the evil whitey in some way with their crap, the Underground Railroad crap, and all that shit is bull crap. Um, it's all made up Jewish stories. The staged stunt with what's her face having to sit at the back of the bus, that was all staged by Jews. And so to think that they won't continue doing so in the future is ridiculous. That's been their pattern the entire time. What in the world would make you think that they're going to stop it now or stop it 100 years in the future? So we have to, now that we have the technology to understand and see the pattern, okay, we can recognize the pattern. We have the internet now. We had men writing books about that they had already recognized the pattern of the Jews 100 years ago. Henry Ford, 500 years ago with Martin Luther. I mean, we've had so many white men along the years try to warn us about the Jews because they noticed the pattern, and they noticed it without the internet. Imagine how intelligent those men must have been to, with no internet at all, still have been able to deduce what we all understand now. So it's a blessing. It's a huge blessing that we live in the era we do, and that we can take the technology we have now and use it to teach millions of our white people about the war that is being waged against us. Had this all been going on when it was 100 years ago, we would have no way to communicate this to everyone in the world easily, Instead, we have all these technologies now that, thanks to our white people, we have created. And so we can utilize these tools that we have now for good instead of using them for bad, like porn and dark web and stupid crap. You can use them to spread the gospel, to reach more of our white people. That's what we're supposed to be using the internet for. It's not for gaming. It's not for, I'm sure you can use it for all that, but God didn't bless us with this technology and the ability to create it and everything in order for us to waste it on cat videos and playing video games and porn and all this other crap. He blessed us to invent this technology so that we could spread the gospel to all the world's white people. So it's unfortunate that we can't get all of our people to see that right now, but that's the point of these channels on YouTube, is for, I don't have a standing army. I can't come just round them up on my own, or I would. So in the meantime, we have to make more and more of our people aware of the situation. We have to awaken more and more of our white people. And eventually, when the bulk majority, or enough of a majority of white people, are finally alarmed enough, we can finally start convincing our people as a group, as a whole, as one group, not a bunch of individuals, not a bunch of different factions, as one group, with the spine of Christianity that we're all clinging on to. We can finally obey our God again as intended, and God will bless our endeavor to restore our country. It's very straightforward. It's very simple. It's very direct. It works exactly that way. The Bible specifies that that's the exact and only and specific way that it does work. And anything else we try to do on our own is not going to work. Period. Dot. If you want to depend on Trump only and think Trump only is going to be our savior, it's going to be a failure if all white people agree to that. If all white people agree that we can just kick them out on our own without Christianity and without God and without Trump, without anybody, we just all of us get together with our 80 million armed white people and kick them out with our guns. No, that's not going to work either. We will not get our way until we obey our God correctly. The fourth commandment is what is holding God back right now from restoring our country and giving it back to us the way it's supposed to be. The fourth commandment, that's the only thing holding our God back right now. He is not going to perform for us and save us until we keep all 10 of his commandments again. We have got to shed the Sunday, sun god, Jew imposed worship day and go back to obeying our God and and worshiping and honoring him on our holy Sabbath every seventh day. It is not the Jews' day. It is white people's day. The Jews have commandeered it just like they commandeer our news and our government and our curriculum and our everything, our identity, our ancient identity. So they commandeer everything of ours. And the other thing they commandeered along with our identity is the day that our identity worships. And the Jews understand this. They understand that that's what they needed to do in order to make us not obey our God. And they knew that they can't destroy us, but they know our God lets us be destroyed if we don't obey his way. So all they have to do is convince us not to obey his way. That's it. And that's exactly what's going on to this day. So you want to defeat the Jays? You want to defeat the non-whites in our country? You start keeping Sabbath every seventh day. And for all you non-whites listening who think, ooh, I'll hack the system and I'll keep Sabbath and maybe that'll somehow counteract the whites keeping Sabbath. Nope, won't matter because Sabbath's not for you. God assigned you your own race's religion. And so any type of imaginary Christianity that you try to have as a non-white is all in vain and for nothing. God doesn't acknowledge your fake imaginary Christianity or your wannabe version of it, your Wakanda version, your Indian version, your Mexican version. He doesn't acknowledge or recognize any of those things. He gave you your own religion, and it is for your race, and it's not wrong for you to obey that religion and stay in your own country and obey that religion. That would actually mean you are serving your intended purpose. And my position is, like I've said before, that any non-whites who never ever interfere with whitey, who never ever come to our land, impose themselves on our land, or any of those things, if they live in their own race's country their whole life, birth to death, never do anything to grift white people or do anything detrimental to white people because they lived in their own country, obeying their own race's religion, doing their own thing. I say that God's word says it doesn't exactly say it, but based on what the totality of what God's word says, my position is that God won't be destroying those types because when he created them, he declared they were very good. So long as they were an ocean away from us and not bothering us whatsoever and obeying their own religion that God assigned them. Those types, God declares, are very good. And so my position is that God will be, after he destroys the wicked and destroys the earth and destroys the wicked and all that he will create a world for the non-whites too, who never had anything to do with bothering whitey whatsoever. Because there is no vengeance for God to have on them. There is no wrath for God to smite them with. They didn't do anything to cause God's wrath if they never bothered whitey whatsoever. If they stayed in their own land and they obeyed their own religion God assigned them, and they never ever did anything to white people or had anything to do with us, there is no reason for God's wrath to be poured upon them. And so my position is God will give them their own worlds to live in. They won't be in ours. We know that for a fact because of Jeremiah 66:23. But we will at least they will at least have their own lands, you know what I mean, somewhere else, their own world somewhere else. It won't be on ours, but it'll be somewhere, and they'll have their own, you know. And I'm not against that. I think it's a great idea. I think God's plan is wonderful, and because I don't actually have a problem with the non-whites, like all the non-whites here do have a problem with us white people and love to call us racist while they openly hate on white people all the time, I actually don't want any of you killed, and I don't want any of you destroyed by God. I hope that, well, of course, all of you who are working against white people will be destroyed by God, though. So don't get it twisted. All of you in the comments tonight who have said anything negative toward me about being a white supremacist, pro-white channel, all of you God plans on destroying. And there's no redemption for you. You've already worked against white people. You've already been working against white people. So every one of you non-whites are dead meat. There is no eternity for you. There is no eternal life possible for you, not even in your own race's religion, because you have already offended and obstructed God's white people in any way, shape, or form. If you've ever spoke against white people, like you have in the chat already, if you ever call one white person a racist, if you ever do anything to try to grift or shame a white person, God already has a target on your forehead, and you are dead meat, and there will be no eternal life for you anywhere, not in your own race's religion or any other. You are the exact upright biped beasts of the field that God will be destroying with the whiteness of his appearance when he arrives. So buckle up, get ready for it, because this life is all you get. And once you live and die your worthless non-white life that you live as a parasite in our country now, that's it. There will be no more for you. When you get reanimated, the next time you get reanimated, it will be after Christ has already come and harvested the white people away. And when you wake up, you're going to find yourself surrounded by nothing but millions of non-whites and a bunch of upset white people who were wicked and corrupt, and who slept with non-whites and produced children with non-whites and all those things. Those are the only whites you're going to find around. And it's going to be you and the non-whites and the wicked whites. And that's all it's going to be. And Satan is going to try to rally all of you together and say, look, we have the most high-tech stuff. We have the best tanks, the best bombs, the best missiles, all left here by the whiteys. Let's use it all. And let's attack that city over there of heaven. And so, because heaven will have come down to the earth by that point, and that's when all of you will be reanimated. And so Satan will convince all of you that you will be able to take us on with the high-tech equipment and jets and tanks and bombs that you have at your disposal. And so you will all collectively together as one massive group of non-whites, you will attack heaven. And that is the moment where Jesus Christ, or what God himself, will force all of you to your knees. And all of you will involuntarily scream out of your mouths that Jesus Christ is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And you will all apologize to God for attacking his white people, for working against his white people. And after you're done confessing that God is God above all things and that Jesus Christ is the King of all kings, and that you are you will be forced to apologize. You will be forced to say you are sorry for working against white people, which is working against God. And after God forces you to apologize out of your own mouths for being against white people all the time you were, God will then rain fire down from above, from the sky above. He's going to rain fire down upon your heads. So your broccoli hair is going to freaking catch on fire first. Your stupid spider head hairdo is going to burst into flames first. And as the fire builds up at the ground level, it's going to start melting you from the feet upward. You're just going to melt into it, just as if you're standing in a puddle of lava. And as the fire rains down upon all of you non-whites who worked against white people, a lake of lava, a lake of fire is going to develop and form all around you and rise higher and higher. And next thing you know, as you're melting down into the lava, it's actually rising. So as it's rising up to your knee level, your legs are going to be melting down into it. And from then on, all you will know is burning and pain and agony and misery. And at some point, the Bible says that he will give you all respite on Sabbath. So Sabbath will be your day that you look forward to. You'll look forward to Sabbath because it will be the one day that God will take all, not all perhaps, but maybe a massive majority of your pain and agony and misery away. And I forget where I read that, but I will look back into that because it wasn't that long ago that I revisited it and read it again. And I was never going to mention it on the stream, but tonight, since I've got a bunch of non-whites that chimed in, I was just figuring I'd go ahead and tell y'all. But yeah, that's the future for all you non-whites. Whoever one time in your whole life, if you've ever typed on YouTube like you did tonight, called me a scary R word, say anything negative online about a white person ever in your whole life, one time, that's it. You're doomed. You're totally doomed. You're totally cursed. You don't get to work against God's favorite people even one time. Not with a comment, not with a text, not with a statement in person to someone. If you've ever attacked a white person, if you ever fist fought a white person, you ever hated a white person openly, or not openly, but inside in your heart or whatever, because you're envious of them and their beautiful blonde hair and their beautiful face and their beautiful blue eyes, and how all the girls are staring at them and hitting on them and flirting with them all the time. Any of that you ever have, if you work against white people or have envy for white people or hate a white person in any way, shape, or form, just one time, you're dead meat. That's it. No eternal life for you. So good luck with being cursed by our God. Nobody has ever made it out of it alive. I'll put it that way. Nobody cursed by our God has ever made it through it. So good luck to you. Especially if you think you're going to be the first one to survive it. I promise you, you won't be. No one survives our God's wrath. No one. Not one non-white on the face of the earth has ever survived our white man God's wrath. So you won't be the first one. I promise you that. You will just be taken down by our God's wrath, just like every non-white before you will be. So, or has been. So, eternal life, you can forget about that unless you live in your own country where you belong. Now, any non-whites who are tuned in from their own racist country, and they have never worked against a white person, and they have no intention on ever invading a white country or trying to mate with a white woman or trying to grift a white person or a tourist that comes to their country or anything, all of you will enjoy eternal life. God will be giving you your own new world, and it will be all for your race. You won't have to worry about, you won't even know white people, you won't know white people exist. Your generations will be put in your own world, and as far as your race is concerned, your race will be the only race in the whole world. So you Indians who are put in your own world, you will, as far as you know, the whole world will be nothing but Indians, and there will be nothing else. And same goes for, the blacks. Same goes for the Arabs. Same thing goes for all of them. If you don't ever work against white people and you never impose yourself into a white country and you never ever do anything to work against any white person, you are not cursed by our God. Period. Dot. I declare. And I declare that because that's what the Bible says. God's wrath is poured out on the ones who work against us. Well, what does that mean for the ones who don't work against us? It means there will be no wrath poured out against them. So it's funny because, I'm the one accused by non-whites of being evil, bigot, hateful, whatever. Meanwhile, they are openly calling us that all the time. I don't go on black sites and be like, you're evil, bigoted, racist, piece of crap. I don't say all that to them. Right? But they go out of their way to come to my channel and say those things, all the while proving that they're the hateful, evil, bigot, racist, whatever. Because if they had such a, if they were so virtuous and so cool with everybody and didn't see color like all the conservatives say about themselves, then they wouldn't even notice my channel. And if they came on it and heard that I was pro-white or talking about pro-white things or any of that, they would just be like, oh, wow, weird, and they would just go to another channel. They wouldn't be ready to immediately accuse me of being hateful, bigot, a-hole, whatever. Because after all, what if I have a good point? What if I'm in my own country complaining about having my own country back? It doesn't matter to a non-white because non-whites get to enjoy their country plus steal ours too. But if they thought about the logic for a minute, which they can't because they're, third worlders, but if they had white people logic, they could perhaps think about it for a minute and go, wait a minute, why am I going to default to openly accusing this dude and call him, names and whatever, accusatory names, why don't I have a listen to what his point is of why he's upset or why he's pissed or why he's pointing out the things he's pointing out, rather than just defaulting to, oh, Whitey bad, Whitey bad, Whitey bad. By you defaulting to Whitey bad, that proves that your only intention is to work against white people, right? That your only intention is to defend your race's terrible actions and disregard white people's concerns for your race and their behavior in our country. So that all that means is you, in your mind, your brain defaults to Whitey bad, Whitey bad. And since your brain defaults to that, that's what God's going to use to determine whether or not his wrath is poured out upon you. And since you default to Whitey bad, God's wrath is going to default to your bad, and you're going to receive the wrath. So, I'm not trying to take anything from non-whites. I'm trying to keep white people's things white people's. And I'm trying to make blacks go back to their world and be in their world where everything is blacks, where they belong, and where everything there belongs to them. Same thing goes for Arabs. Same thing goes for Mexicans. I want them to go back to their country and enjoy what belongs to them. And I don't want any non-whites to have to die in order for this to be accomplished. Non-whites are really foolish, because y'all could actually just go back to your countries tomorrow. And white people would be so set again, and we would be so on the forward path again once y'all are all gone, that we would start just sending you gifts and blessings once we are advanced along again. It wouldn't even take that long. Because white people work, when we have no non-whites in our way, we progress rapidly. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but from 1800s to just 1960, we went from horse and buggy to jets that fly 600 miles an hour. 35,000 feet in the air. So, if you give us just a little bit of time, once you all piss off back to your own countries, you won't have to wait all that long. And next thing you know, here will come an entire shipping barge full of free shit from white people. Way more than you ever get out of us now. You think you get all kinds of shit out of us now because you got cars and you got access to white people's stuff over here and all that. But you'll have all that in your own country eventually. And you won't be having to compete against beautiful white men who are taller than you, that look better than you, that do things better than you, or make way more money than you because they're valuable in our white society because of the intelligence they have, from some knowledge they've developed, from schooling they had, or whatever. You won't have to compare yourselves to us anymore. All of you Indian guys who are envious because you can't get a white woman, all that envy will be gone. You'll only be competing against your own Indian guys for the most beautiful examples of your own Indian women, females, in your own Indian world. And the same goes for the Mexicans. I know a bunch of you little 5-foot-tall Mexicans are so sick of seeing white guys walking around with your freaking prettiest examples of your females. All of that's gone in a flash when you all move back to Mexico, where you belong. And all of your Mexican females are going to be taken back with you. So pretty soon, in just a generation or two, y'all won't even remember white people exist. That'll just be some campfire story. And you won't have to compete with white guys for your own females anymore. You're 5'5", can't get yourself a woman. Well, you'll be able to once you're back in Mexico and all of your people are back there. All your upright bipeds are back there with you, including your females. You'll have your pick of the litter. And the only competition around you will be the other 5'5" Mexican. All you blacks who have convinced yourselves that you could score a white chick, but you still can't. Well, guess what? When you get back to Africa, after just a few years, not even, perhaps a few months, You'll be the pick of the litter there. You'll be the cream of the crop. And you'll have your pick of the best examples of your upright biped females to pick from. Now, we know, and you know, that y'all really don't, that isn't enticing to y'all. Not near as much so as staying in Whitey world. But it'll only take a generation or two. And your kind, your posterity after you will only know your world again, you know? And so I realize that it's not in your nature to be to sacrifice anything or give up anything of your own. I realize that each of you are a selfish individual, all about your own self, and that you steal from your own mama. But so therefore, none of this is enticing to you that I'm trying to explain. But it is necessary, and it's going to have to happen. And I know that the blacks will be the ones that resist it the most, because they're the ones who like being around the whiteys the most. But you gotta understand, you all the envy and hatred that you have built up in you every day when you look in the mirror and you're like, crap, why don't I get to be a white person? You know, why do I gotta be this freaking black and whatever? All of that terrible feeling you have about your own self and the envy you end up defaulting to against white people because of it will all go away. There will be no more, you won't have that envy anymore. You won't have to have it anymore, because everywhere you look in every direction, there will be no white person. There will be no white person for you to compare yourself against. There will be no beautiful white guy having all the attention of all the pretty girls. It'll just be you against your own kind for your own kind's females. Much easier game for you to play, you know. And, you know, I realize that some blacks are like, yeah, right, I can score white girls here, so it's easy for me, blah, blah. Why would I want to go back to a black girl? Well, for those types, you're just going to have to go. I'm not going to be able to convince you that you're going to enjoy it. I'm not going to be able to convince you that it's a good idea, because you're all about yourselves. And that's all you care about is yourself, nobody else. No son you have in the future are you worried about. You're not trying to leave a better world for your kids. See, that's the difference between white people and non-whites. As white people, we are thinking about the future for our children. We want to leave a better neighborhood, a better country, a better world for our children to enjoy. But y'all don't think like that. You see something and you go, ooh, mine, you know? And that's all you care about. You're like an animal. That's why you're really literally the beasts of the field, because you don't think about your children. You don't think about sacrificing anything at all in your life. You don't want to do without anything in your life in order for your children to have more in the future. That's not even wired in your mind at all. Okay, but in white people, we are wired that way. God has wired us that way to concern ourselves with our future children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and their well-being and the world that they will enjoy. You know, we're trying to create the world for them to be living in a good place when they grow up and rear their own children. And so the two types of mentalities are completely incompatible with each other. We can't have you opportunist, 100% selfish, criminal mentality creatures living in our society. Okay? We like to live in a society of high trust, where we can let our children walk to school and not have to worry about Tyrone Biggins trying to snatch one and take her in the bushes and rape her and kill her. Okay? We like having a society of high trust where we have a change little thing next to the register that says, please take one. And white people throw a dime in there or a nickel in there, a few pennies in there, because we don't care to have it in our pocket that day. And because we know it'll help a fellow white person out who might need be just a penny shy. We can't have that with y'all, because you'll just grab all the change out of it and walk out of the store with it, even though it's only 7 cents. Because of your existence in our land, we cannot have proper America. Your existence in America as a non-white ruins America. Comprehend this. As long as you are standing on our soil, America is ruined and does not exist. And America doesn't exist any longer until all of you are removed from our country. Period. Dot. Until the Jews are removed from our government and our country, and until you all are removed from our government and our country, America is no longer a country. It's a country, but it's no longer a nation, you know. And because America is no longer the nation it once was, America is simply not America. Okay, America is an all-white nation, a Christian, white, fascist nation. That's what America is. And anytime America is not a white, Christian, fascist nation, then it's not America. So every 4th of July, like I've mentioned in other streams, we are celebrating the country formerly known as America. We're celebrating the corpse of America. We're celebrating something that used to exist but does not exist anymore. And so, and I mentioned this in the last stream, it's like celebrating your grandparents who are already dead. Imagine still celebrating their birthday every year, which I'm totally not against that. And I think we should still celebrate 4th of July every year for the memory of the corpse of the America that used to exist. But it should be understood that way. It shouldn't be that we're celebrating multi-culti third world hellhole modern day, what we think of nowadays as America. We should be celebrating what America used to be in its past on 4th of July. Just like we would be celebrating our grandparents' life that they lived back in the day when they were alive if we still celebrated their birthday every year. And if white people celebrated 4th of July that way, it would be being kept more proper, because America right now does not exist. Right now, we're in a third world hellhole country. That's what we're in. We might as well be in India or Saudi Arabia or Tel Aviv or Mexico or Nigeria. Because the end result is, for your children, when they leave the house, is the same as that, is the same as living in Nigeria, or the same as if they lived in Mexico, or the same as if they lived in freaking Tel Aviv. They are not enjoying growing up and developing in an all-white country like they're supposed to. And all of you conservatives who listen in, who are still duped about fascism, okay? America is supposed to be a Christian fascist country. So stop calling leftists and your opponents and anti-whiters fascists, okay? They are not. We are supposed to be fascists. We're supposed to be Christian fascists. This is a Christian fascist white country. And that's why the Jews created anti-fascism, Antifa. They've got you mispronouncing it. They have you calling it Antifa, as though it doesn't mean anti-fascist. If the Jews create something anti, what does that tell you? Shouldn't that tell you something? The Jews are always working against you, right? So, and who are the most anti-white of all the races? The Jews, right? The Jews and the blacks, of course, but the Jews particularly. So, if the Jews are anti-white and they create anything else that's anti-something, wouldn't you suppose that thing that they're against is also probably pro-white or benefits white people? Well, it just so happens that it does. America is a white Christian fascist country. So is Europe supposed to be. All the countries of Europe are supposed to be. And that is why the Jews created Antifa, not Antifa, where you're putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. They got you doing that with the word police, too. It's policy. They're policy enforcers. But they've got you mispronouncing it police, because police don't sound like policy. And it doesn't trigger your brain into realizing that it means the word policy. So when they have you mispronouncing Antifa, putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, which causes you to mispronounce it, you're not saying Antifa. You're not saying anti-fascist. You're not realizing, oh shit, the Jews are anti-fascist. That means fascism must be white people's beneficial thing. They're anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-Jesus, anti-Bible, anti-God's 10 Commandments, and anti-fascist. Put it all together. And for all you cocks listening who don't understand what fascism actually is, I'll explain. As I've explained many times before. Fascism has nothing to do with the state controls the means of production and blah, 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 and all that horse crap that conservatives repeat all the time. Okay? Here's what fascism is. Fascism is that the God of your religion's laws are the laws of your country. That's fascism. So if this is a Christian fascist country, guess what the laws of this country are? Christianity's laws. That's fascism. Congratulations, you now understand what fascism is from beginning to end. It has nothing to do with the state controlling the means of this or that or production, blah, 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 blah. It means the laws of your religion are the laws of your country, the laws of your government. That's what fascism is. And that's why we have a Roman fasci on either side of our freaking Speaker of the House position in the House of Representatives. It's okay that those are there. We are the Romans, fools. White people are Romans. Romans are white people. Romans did not kill Jesus. Jesus asked God to forgive them, for they didn't know what they were doing. Why did Christ say that while they were busy killing him? Because they were doing it for the Jews. So, any of you who've been calling your leftist opponents online fascist, snap out of your stupidity, snap out of your retarded cuckery, okay? Jews are anti-fascist because Christian fascism is what prevents us from being conquered and commandeered by the Jews. If we were still a white Christian fascist country, Jews couldn't be included in our government. Non-whites wouldn't be allowed in our country. What do you think America was before 1965? A white Christian fascist country. So what did the Jews create? Antifa. Not Antifa. Antifa. Anti-fascism. Why would Jews create that if it's beneficial for white people? Why would Jews create anti-fascism unless it works against white people? You know, they wouldn't. They only create things that work against white people. So when they created Antifa, you should have realized at that point, damn, if the Jews are against fascism, that means it's good for white people. And then you should have figured out from there, well, if fascism is good for white people, where is fascism? How is it? How does it apply? And you could have looked it up and you would have found out that fascism literally only means that the laws of your religion are the laws of your government. Jews want you to believe in the separation of church and state, which isn't true, which is a fucking lie. Okay? The whole concept of the church separation of church and state was just a suggestion from one founding framer in a letter he wrote to another founding framer. It has nothing to do with our Constitution. It has nothing to do with our Bill of Rights. Our whole country is based on our holy Bible. We used to have 10 commandments in every courthouse, and the Jews are who got rid of that. The Jews are who whined and cried and bitched and moaned and complained until all of our courthouses had the 10 commandments taken down from them. We used to even have them in our schools. Our first public schools, the very first public schools ever created in America, were created to teach white children the Bible. Not math, not scientism, not English, and certainly not Spanish. Our schools were created, our first public schools were created to teach our children the Bible. Now, how are you going to say, out of one side of your mouth, that there's the such thing as separation of church and state, when we literally have all of our founding fathers and all the presidents before us, all the politicians before us, swore on our Bible? That would mean nothing if it was an atheist country, if it wasn't a Christian country. We had prayer to our God. You can read in the preamble of every state constitution that the state is dedicated to our God of the Holy Bible. And it doesn't say of the Holy Bible, but it means of the Holy Bible. They're not talking about any other God. Literally, our country was completely Christian fascism all the way until the mid-1900s, when Jews demanded that we allow non-whites into our country and demand that we allow non-whites into our government. And so they had to shame fascism. They had to make fascism an evil boogeyman in your mind so that you'd be okay with, the destruction and ruining and erasing of fascism. And so once you were cool with fascism and being erased because you were tricked into thinking it's a bad thing, well, guess what? The Jews are like, okay, cool. So we need to get rid of the 10 commandments in all your courthouses. We need to get rid of them at your schools. We need to get rid of prayer in your schools. We need to get rid of the Bible in your schools. We need to take one nation under God out of your Pledge of Allegiance, because it might offend the Muslim kid we're allowing in your school now. It might offend the Jewish kid in your school now. I'm sorry I haven't looked at the chat tonight. After the whole, oh my gosh, there's been a million comments. My bad, y'all. I apologize that I haven't read anybody's comments for a really long time. I got to be honest, I don't think I'm going to either tonight, because I've got so many here to go through. It's an insane amount. I'm shocked at how many comments there are tonight. Oh, wow. So I'm basically just going to rant tonight. This is just an angry rant. But at the same time, it's not all anger. Some of it is grateful. I was grateful about what I heard Trump say tonight, so that it goes in Gen Z and Gen Alpha's ears. Even if Trump is not going to be the guy to really do everything the way we need it done, which I don't think he will be, because, again, white people have not conformed to God's way yet. But Trump is a stepping stone, it looks to be. And God is basically giving us this one final chance. He's basically saying, look, I'm giving you everything you've been praying for. I'm giving you the golden-haired, blue-eyed man you want. I'm making him do all these things that he didn't do the first time, and that some of you wished he would have done and believe he will do, and the rest of your kind have been telling you, no, he's never going to do it, no, he's never going to do it. Look, I'm making him do it. But God wants us to keep our end of the bargain. And so God has used this particular person, Trump, who is everything we want, except he obeys the wall kissers. And God has that in his back pocket. And he's waiting on us to obey his way. God can use Trump either way he wants right now. And it's up to us behaving and obeying God the way we're supposed to, honoring our God's holy Sabbath every seventh day. You want Trump to actually do what we really want him to do? You want Trump to actually do what he's been saying that he's doing and make it, and it really be for real that he's really going to do the things he says? Start keeping Sabbath. You want to see Trump be a huge disappointment, nothing burger, even work against us like the first 4 years again? Then go ahead and carry on your way like you do and ignore God's Sabbath and just keep trusting in Trump, and Trump will fail you. Trump will let you down. Even if you worship him so hard that you never believe he did, you won't get any results out of him that benefit your life as a white person. And even if you do, your child will be attacked years from now by a black, which would nullify any benefit you thought you got from Trump in this day and time. Okay? So the bottom line is, even if you think you're winning with Trump being in power right now and you not keeping God's Sabbath and whatever, you will lose in the end. If we do not all keep God's Sabbath collectively, that is the only thing holding God back from restoring our country. I'm telling you, you could read it in any Bible, any version. God says over and over again, if you turn your foot off of my Sabbath, take your foot off of my Sabbath, that means quit stepping on it. That means quit going four-wheeling on my Sabbath. That means quit going boating on my Sabbath. That means quit going bowling on my Sabbath. Quit going swimming with your friends on Sabbath. Quit doing whatever thing you do every week on Sabbath instead of honoring God and honoring Sabbath. You need to stop it. If you go shopping, if you go drag racing, you go mudding, you need to stop it. It's okay to go do something you enjoy once in a while on a Sabbath. It's not okay to use Sabbath as your day of pleasure for that. What does God say in there about Sabbath? He says, not doing your own pleasures on my holy day. That means Sabbath isn't for your boating day. Sabbath isn't for your four-wheeling day. That's what Sunday's for. Sabbath is for you to have with your family. Or if you have no family, to be with like-minded, close people, close friends who are faithful believers and also honor Sabbath. And I'm giving you the solution. All these other channels tell you, they complain, and I've been accused of it too. All you do is complain. That's all you. There's never any solutions. You don't ever offer any solutions. Bullshit. I offer the same solution all the time. And it's the only real solution. There is no other real solution. You're not going to win our country back refusing to keep God's Sabbath. It's not going to happen. Trump will not be victorious if we do not start keeping Sabbath. Trump will not do what we hope for him to do for us. But Trump will do what we hope Trump will do for us if we all start obeying God's way. The choice is up to you. You're holding the keys to your own jail cell. You either obey God's way and you get everything the way you want. Trump ends up being the hero you thought he was all along. Or you disregard our God's Sabbath and Trump ends up being a huge failure, blowing up in your face. Not a failure, but actually working against us on behalf of the Jays. God has him situated where he can swing him either way, depending on our obedience. So, knowing all of that, go to bed tonight. I'm going to cut this off early. Under 3 hours. That's incredible. I'm going to cut this off early tonight because I know it's the beginning of the week. I realize people need to get to bed. A whole bunch of you are probably already passed out while I'm sitting here ranting. So I'm going to cut it off early tonight, but but first of all, I had no idea Trump was going to speak tonight. I haven't been watching the news. I had no idea what was coming up with Trump or anything, publicly. I only discovered that an hour or two after I posted I was going to do a stream tonight. But it worked out great because now I had that fresh to listen to right from the horse's mouth before I started the stream so that we could, basically base this talk on what he had said tonight. In fact, I would say it couldn't have worked out more perfect for me, other than I wish it would have happened an hour sooner so I could have started the stream an hour sooner. But since we had to start so late, and it's already going to be so late for you folks who are being faithful to stay up so late and listen, even if you got to be up in the morning, I realize your time is precious. I don't want to waste any of your time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off for tonight so that all of you can get a decent night's rest, best you can. But that is the solution. I'm giving you the solution, and it's not me. It's God's given you the solution, and I'm just one voice of many trying to get you to notice that this is the solution, and there is no other solution. Comprehend this. Burn this in your soul forever. There is no other solution. There is no other solution. It's not like there's another solution, but it's really hard to find. And it's really far off somewhere, and it's got stuff piled on top of it. And we just dig hard enough, and we study hard enough, and we look around far enough, and we check under every rock, and we look everywhere, and we flip every bookcase over. We'll eventually find it. No, there is no other solution. There is one solution, and that solution is Sabbath. It seems too easy. I understand that. It seems way too easy. What do you mean, dude? You're saying we just keep Sabbath and that's it? Yes, that's what I'm telling you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. You just start keeping Sabbath and that's it. Why? Because it's not just keeping Sabbath. Sabbath is the biggest deal to God. It's the fourth commandment. There are only 3 commandments more important than that one to God in his hierarchy of the list. The fourth commandment is the longest worded of all the commandments of God's 10 commandments. The first word of that commandment is remember. Remember. Why? Why do you use the word remember as the first word of that commandment? Because he knew you would forget. He knew the Jews would be determined to make you forget. So, how are you going to honor Sabbath if you don't first remember it? And notice he used the word remember, not discover. Okay, he didn't say discover the Sabbath and keep it holy. No, he said remember. Why did he say remember instead of discover? After all, you've never kept Sabbath before. How are you going to remember to keep it? It's because he's letting you know that that is what he established for us, white people, mankind, on week 1 of creation. During creation week, he literally established that day for us. And our ancestors before us all obeyed that day. So for you and I to come along in the future, it is for us to remember. Even though you haven't ever kept it in your life, all of your ancestors before us did. And at some point, cuckery came into your family and disrupted you from keeping Sabbath anymore, your family from keeping Sabbath anymore. Just like, and it might not have been cuckery. It could have been that your family stopped keeping Sabbath because of the Christian Crusades, as they called it. Okay, where the Jews paid the the Jews commanded the Catholic Church to go around and slaughter every white person who refused to quit keeping Sabbath. 60 million white people were killed by the Catholic Church by command of the Jews through owning and ruling the Catholic Church. They killed 60 million of our white people who refused to quit keeping Sabbath. So that may be how your family got forced out of keeping Sabbath, as that probably applies to most of our white families. So Remember means we have to revisit it. We have to rekindle ourselves with it. We have to rejoin our family, realign our family with our original holy day. God's day. It's not our day, it's God's day. God calls it the Lord's day. It's his. And he says, keep my Sabbath, keep my Sabbath. Take your foot off my Sabbath. It's God's day. It's not for you to decide that it's better for you to four-wheel or boat or whatever. Okay? It's God's day. And God told you he wants you to worship him that day. He wants you to spend time with your family that day. He wants you to take them to a picnic, take them to a park, show your girl flowers, show your son, the magnificence of animals or the sky or some amazing thing that God has taught white people to be able to do. It's for you to exhibit to your children the glories of God's handiwork, to point out his stars or the sun and moon, the clouds, the birds, to read the Bible to them, to explain to them why Sabbath is important so that they understand why they're keeping Sabbath. And so they can explain to their children why they keep Sabbath when they have children. It's to tell our traditions and our stories, to pass them on to our children. It's to be grateful to our God that day. And until we take our foot off of it, God will not give us full victory, or any at all for that matter. He'll only allow us to keep having the illusion that we're getting small victories here and there, like he's been doing. And he will only offer us leaders who have Jews in control of them, just like Trump, so that anytime we decide we're going to continue on with our ways instead of God's ways, he can keep using those Jew-obeying imposters to rule over us. But right now we have this opportunity. Trump is openly telling the world that he is backstabbing all of the Jewish created establishments, the NGOs, USAID, all the things, everything the Jews have created against us practically. So God is giving us a guy that we've been wanting. We've been praying for a powerful rich man to rise up and betray the whole system, double cross it, flip it on its head, and restore our country for us. But God is the only one who can do that, not Trump. Okay? God has provided someone like Trump, and it's up to us, through our obedience of God, to determine what Trump's behavior will be. And I assure you, and I promise you with all of my heart, that if all of us white people started keeping Sabbath tomorrow, Trump would end up restoring this whole country. And it would look like he did it all himself. But it would be God doing it the whole time. And you will see that with your own eyes if you can convince everyone you love to start keeping Sabbath. I have people that send me happy Sabbath. I just had a buddy the other day. I've only said happy Sabbath to him like 3 times ever in text messages, right? Because I don't speak to him on Sabbath all that often. But several times that I did need to talk to him on a Sabbath, every time when I text him, I say, happy Sabbath. And then I go right on with my question, right? Well, this guy the other day out of nowhere texted me happy early Sabbath. All right? I've never texted him a happy early Sabbath. I do that with my friends and my family, but I've never done that with him particularly. This dude busted out with it on a preparation day. Sent me a text, happy early Sabbath, and he asked me a question. This guy is literally, and by the way, he's an ex-Mormon, and I don't know him from the Mormon church or anything. I met him through a friend who owns a business, and he was an employee there. I don't know anything about his Mormon past, but all I know is that he's an ex-Mormon, and that his dad's a Mormon. And here he is sending me happy early Sabbath text. All because I've said happy Sabbath to him 3 or 4 times. A couple 3 times in text message and a couple 3 times perhaps in person when I've hung out with him on a Sabbath. But just those few times. And here we have an ex-Mormon noticing and remembering Sabbath. Remember, the first word of it is remember. Remember the Sabbath. He's remembering it now, y'all. That's the first step to honoring Sabbath, is remembering it at all. And so if you can just start saying happy Sabbath, pick a loved one, your mother, your dear aunt, your father, whoever, pick one and start saying happy Sabbath. Just send them a text every Sabbath. Send them a text. Happy Sabbath. If you got a question to ask them or if you want to say something to them, start with happy Sabbath and then tell them your statement or ask them your question. You know what I mean? They're going to ignore you at first. They're going to ignore the happy Sabbath. They're not going to ignore you, but they're going to perhaps ignore the happy Sabbath. They may just be like, oh, same to you or hello, and answer your question. So the next time you communicate with them on a Sabbath, happy Sabbath. What's up with Tuesday? Are we da-da-da-da-da or whatever? Ask your question. It only takes several times. And next thing you know, they're remembering Sabbath. Try it, y'all. I promise you it works. I promise. You know why it works? Because it's God blessed. It's what God expects of you and it's what God wants of you. So guess what happens when you start doing exactly what God expects of you and wants of you? He blesses your endeavor. If you have children, you need to start sending them happy Sabbath texts every Sabbath, unapologetically. Doesn't matter if your kid doesn't like it. Doesn't matter what your kid says back. Say it every week to them. If you don't see them in person, you text it to them. If you see them in person, you tell them in person. Happy Sabbath. Say it every week. Don't make it a bad thing. Make it a happy thing. Don't be like, like I said it just then, it's be like happy Sabbath, it's a good time. It's a positive time. It's our white people history day. One day every week, 52 days a year we get to enjoy of white people history day. So it's a celebration day. It's a day to celebrate that God created us and that God created everything in this world your eyes will ever behold as immortal for us. And he gave us dominion over all of the earth and all that is in it. So I hope that all of you will burn that into your soul forever. That is the solution. There is no other solution. Trump is not the solution. Guns are not the solution. Nothing is the solution except for keeping our God's holy Sabbath. You do that, you convince everyone else of our white people to do that you can, and watch our country be restored so fast you wouldn't even believe it. Think about when we were freed from Egypt by God. Think of how much he had to do to cause Pharaoh to finally let us go. If I would have told you the day before the third plague, don't worry, hang in there. God's going to get us out of this mess soon. We just got to keep obeying Sabbath and God's going to get us out of this. You would have looked at me and said, yeah, right, dude. We've been under this persecution all this time. God's already stricken Pharaoh and the Egyptians with 2 different crazy, horrific plagues, and he has no intention of letting us go. You're nuts, bro. But the next morning we were freed. It can happen again. It will happen again. The question is, do you want to make it happen in your lifetime so that you get to benefit and see it with your own mortal eyes? Or are you going to be a lazy cuck and let some other generation finally uncuck themselves and do it after you're already long dead and gone? Me personally, I want it to happen. I want to cause it to happen in our lifetime. I want to trigger God's blessing to come our way through obedience to his 10 commandments, to his word. It's the only way we win, and it is the way we definitely win. God bless you all. Have a fantastic day tomorrow. Have a great night's sleep tonight, except for the non-whites. I hope all of you are haunted until the day you die. You all deserve it. Any of you who are in a white country. Any of you non-whites who are listening from your own non-white country, and you have never bothered white people whatsoever, God bless y'all and have a wonderful night too in your own countries. And I even hope that God blesses your countries so that your types, your kinds benefit well while you live in your countries, not messing with whitey. All right. I don't want your worlds to have to be hellholes. I don't want India to be trash ridden and nasty and unhygienic for you Indian folks who live there. I want it to be clean. I want y'all to have electricity. I want y'all to have toilets. I want y'all to have all the things that you see in white people world and wish you had there. Same goes for blacks in Nigeria. Same goes for everywhere where non-whites are not messing with white people in their own country where they belong. I look forward to God blessing them. They deserve it because they're not bothering white people. So, God bless you to all my kindred white people. God bless you to all the non-whites who have nothing to do with white countries or bothering white people in any way, shape, or form. And to all the non-whites who are in a white country, you're all cursed, doomed to hell. And I look forward to seeing that day. So, take care, y'all. I'll talk to you on another one. I just wanted to cut this one short tonight so that everybody can get some rest. And we'll do a weekend one coming up soon. I'll try to do a Sabbath stream with y'all, perhaps this Sabbath. If all goes well, I'll make plans to do it this Sabbath. We'll have a Sabbath stream. If I cannot do it this Sabbath, I will definitely try to do it next Sabbath. All right. So Sabbath stream coming up soon. And until then, in the meantime, y'all have a lovely night. And who knows, maybe sometime this week, if I get another night this week where I can start a stream earlier, I will. And we'll do an afternoon into the evening stream during the week. And then if I can do Sabbath stream also this weekend, I will also do that. So take care. God bless. I will see y'all on another one.